We're just still having some technical difficulty. It'll be just another minute. We're finally ready. Thank you all for coming tonight. I'd like to start out with the opening exercises for a moment of silence and a Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance is going to be with Joey Young, from fifth grader from Alta Loma, is going to lead us in that. Thank you. I'll stand.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Joey. All right, next on the agenda is staff recognitions. Ms. Dunsey?
Good evening, President Pincarelli, members of the governing board, and Dr. Stifler. Zero Robotics is a programming competition where robots are controlled inside the International Space Station. The competition starts online where students program spheres to solve an annual challenge. Students develop software that controls satellite speed, rotation, and direction of travel. Students must program their satellites to complete game objectives such as navigate obstacles and pick up virtual objects. In addition to these challenges, students are also asked to be aware of conserving resources such as fuel and staying within specified time and code size limits. The programs that the students create are autonomous, meaning that once the challenge starts, the students can no longer control the satellites. After the initial online simulation phase, finalists are selected to compete in a live championship aboard the International Space Station. I am proud to announce that Centennial High School's Zero Robotics team, led by Diana Denton, was able to form an alliance with 2 Italian teams, share code in order to prepare for a final competition. They communicated frequently through Google Hangouts and were able to use translation programs in order to share information effectively. Centennial's alliance team, Space Linguini, which included their Zero Robotics group, won the competition and are now international champions. I would now like to recognize Centennial High School's Zero Robotics team for their outstanding success. From Centennial High School, I know he was not able to join us this evening because he is in a musical, but Brandon Hang. We also have Trevor Garner, please stand. Brian B. Garrett Rue, and their advisor, Diana Denton. Supporting them this evening are their families, their principal, Christine Lopez Lira, and we all want to congratulate you on your accomplishments and all of your hard work. At this time, I would like to invite Ms. Stenton and the students to come up to the podium to stand for any congratulations or other remarks from the governing board.
Mrs. Connect, would you like to start?
I'll just offer my congratulations and say that international champions will look great on your resume for the rest of your lives. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Ceja Martinez?
Good evening. Thank you so much for coming this evening as well and getting a chance to meet you. I'm so proud and impressed. I do have a question. Out of the whole scenario, besides winning, what was the situation that you look back and you are so proud of that you overcame as a team or individually, and anyone can take it?
Thank you, President, the board members of the board, and Dr. Stifler. The challenge that we felt like we felt the best about accomplishing was one stage is the line stage. This stage is comprised of a combination of every other stage, but in this one is when we experienced the most difficulty in. This is when they changed everything in the game, including the items like rotation, where you had to retrieve an item, which side you can only retrieve it on a certain side, and the item starts spawning in random locations. And this was really the hardest challenge to overcome, but after we did it, that was something we felt really accomplished about.
Fabulous. And those skills are priceless. Congratulations.
Mrs. Doan?
Yes, I want to congratulate you as well. It's very exciting. We hear a lot about your team, and we're glad to hear how well you're doing. I think that the international is quite an accomplishment. I do believe it will follow you. It'll be a good thing for your future, and I'm glad to see that you're making such good preparations for your future, and very proud to call Peoria your home. Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
So I would imagine, in addition to winning, you're also now fluent in Italian. Is that right? So look, as a district, we always talk about, our unique business values, our programs, especially when we, take a look at, STEM and, how we really prepare our students for the future. But in addition to that, our student population, meaning you up there and the individual that wasn't able to make it, represented our district well and differentiates us from the rest. So thank you for that.
Well, I just want to say, go Centennial. Our daughters went to Centennial High School, so I have a little, I'm a little biased, I guess, on Centennial. I just want to know, what grades are you in, and what are you looking at getting into in college?
So me and Brian here are both seniors, as well as Brandon, who was not able to attend. Trevor Garner here is a junior, so the three of us will be leaving, but he will still be staying behind.
Okay.
Our future goals, I think we're all planning to go to college. That's a kind of a must-be for us. And I know for next year, for Trevor specifically, we're planning to make the Zero Robotics a lot bigger and hopefully have it a legacy that carries on throughout our Centennial High School's years.
Well, thank you very much, and congratulations to all of you. I guess at this point, we'd like to take some pictures if any parents are in the audience. So we'll move aside.
Take a picture. You're welcome to do so.
Black duct tape.
All right, smile, everybody. Okay.
How about a giant round of applause?
Congratulations.
And I apologize. May I have you state your, the teacher's name again? Diana Denton.
Thank you very much. And for our next acknowledgement?
Yes, President Pingarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. We have another exciting recognition to share with you this evening. The district hosted its 30th annual Patriotic Speech Contest on March 2nd. And just as in years past, there was a very impressive group of students that came well prepared across the district. The Patriotic Speech Contest is undoubtedly one of the top events every year. In our district, it's enjoyed by the students, their families, their teachers, their administrators, and even the judges as well. The contest is an opportunity for our students to share their understanding of patriotism while perfecting their public speaking skills and demonstrating their passion for a particular person or a particular event. The students that attended the district Patriotic Speech Contest had won their respective school contests and advanced to our district level. The students that we are recognizing this evening are the best of the best. They took first place in their division. And before I introduce them, I would like to direct you to the screen so that we can watch a short video that captures the essence of the passionate students who did their best showing patriotism.
The Founding Fathers risked everything for the sake of their liberty and the liberty for future generations to come. Though we may remember the historical past events for their immense passion and patriotism, we must not forget the same acts presented in the modern era.
Liberty has given you and your country more power than any weapon or human could ever offer. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why the land of stars and stripes is such an incredible country.
The hope, the pride, and the triumph of the American people reverberate throughout the history books. And in every one of those books, one name that rings like a bell is Thomas Jefferson, the precipice of patriotism.
The fiery words of the allegiance cultivates patriotism and produces an eternal thirst for liberty and freedom. So let us join hands together in teaching all children the true meaning of the pledge.
We should not take our freedom for granted. We must cherish our freedom because it could be gone in an instant. We all must keep this valuable ability dear and close to our heart because we never know when enemies could attack at any time and take this wonderful ability away from us.
How do you follow your responsibilities as an American citizen, I ask? Voting in a presidential election, obeying laws, and paying your taxes are all important responsibilities that citizens have to their country.
You see, it's my civic duty to attend school since it's a law. However, it is my civic responsibility to do my absolute best while in school. This way, I can later use what I've learned to contribute to society and to benefit my community. My family immigrated to America because of the beautiful and bold American dream. This dream is a living representation that we need to dream big and have courage. Given our equal rights, we all have a chance to change the world. America welcomes all, and everyone is given the rights that every single human being deserves.
America is the land of the free, the home of the brave, and above all, this land is home to so many immigrants. Why should we deny them the chance to have a part in this, to have their names etched in American history? I was given that chance, you were given that same chance. We shouldn't let a place of birth or a language divide us.
Let your culture be one of the millions of threads that is woven into the tapestry that is our country. Imagine how much greater this nation can become, given the chance to incorporate your cultures, values, and belief systems into the American melting pot.
If we're not for President Obama, we would not have fulfilled the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. of living in a nation where his 4 little children won't be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I ask you now to continue that dream. Be judged by the content of your character. Can you use your actions to offer hope for our future?
And some people are probably thinking to themselves, oh, she's just an 11-year-old. She doesn't know what patriotism means. To have patriotism within you doesn't mean that you have to be a certain age. What matters is what you truly support and believe in this country. And yes, you better believe it, I am a proud patriot. Now let me ask you one more thing before you let me go. Are you a true patriot? Thank you for your time.
I would like to give a very special thank you to David Colley and our Public Relations Department for helping produce that video so that you guys could capture some of the wonderful things from the Patriotic Speech Contest earlier this month. I would also like to extend a thank you to Amy Yenerick in our Curriculum and Instruction Department, who puts countless hours and a lot of resources making sure that that contest goes off without a hitch. And I know she was unable to join us this evening, but we thank her for her efforts nonetheless. We would also like to extend thanks to our judging panel, which also consisted of governing board members, as well as members of the United States Air Force, business members, community members, and Peoria Unified staff as well. Now, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you this year's Patriotic Speech First Place winners. From Area 1, 5th and 6th grade winner from Frontier Elementary School is Colleen Corcoran. Please stand. Area 2, 5th and 6th grade winner from Alta Loma Elementary School, Joey Young. Area 1, 7th and 8th grade winner from Frontier Elementary School also is Ivy Sada. Area 2, 7th and 8th grade winner from Marshall Ranch Elementary School is Eva Cherian. So not only are these students phenomenal, but we'd also like to recognize their families that I'm sure put together countless hours of support in helping these students with the contest. I also want to recognize we do have some principals in the room this evening who have joined us to help recognize these students for their achievement. We have Mrs. Lori Little, Miss Tammy Moss from Frontier Elementary School, Miss Sherry Hedges from Alta Loma, and Mrs. Hobbs from Marshall Ranch Elementary School. Thank you for coming to support your students tonight. Now, winners at this time, please go ahead and join me at the podium so that you can stand for some comments or questions from our governing board.
This time I go to Mrs. Doan.
Well, congratulations, and speech making is really a thing that can get you pretty far in life, but more important than that is the patriotism, to understand how important it is to be an American citizen and all the things, the privileges and everything that go with that. I'm very encouraged to see that we have some folks here that have some good understanding of that, and I thank you all for your effort, your time, and your passion that you put in. Congratulations and God bless.
Mr. Sandoval?
So my first question is, which one of you aspires to be the next president of the United States? Hey, Joey. So congratulations again. I'm sure your parents are very proud. Certainly the staff, teachers at your respective schools, and you should be very proud. You all spoke with confidence and conviction. Joe, you spoke about civic duty, and it's something that's important to all of us to make sure that we exercise, that the right that we have as individuals. So thank you.
Mrs. Connect?
So my question would be, what's the hardest part? Is it the writing? Is it coming up with an idea? Is it actually standing up in front of people and presenting? What do you think? What's the hardest thing about it?
For me was actually standing up in front of people and talking, and that was the hardest part for me in doing that. So,
Well, it didn't show. Girls, anyone want to comment on that?
I'll have to agree with him. No matter how many times you get up in front of people and talk, it's always nerve-wracking. So, I mean, just keeping your composure is kind of something you always have to work on, so, yeah.
I definitely agree with that too. Probably standing up and presenting was the hardest part of doing this.
I agree too. You always think you're going to do good, but then when you go on stage, it's like so much scarier than you think it's going to be.
Well, I'm not surprised. As you probably know, public speaking is one of the, I think it's the top thing that people fear in the world. So for you have to overcome that challenge at this young age is a huge accomplishment. So congratulations on your victory. And like I said earlier, this is going to look great on your resume.
Mrs. Ceja Martinez?
Congratulations. This was the first time that I was a judge, and I was overwhelmed with emotion for a lot of reasons. I've heard civic duty, civic responsibility, hope, pride, courage, cultivating, and they all resonate with me a little bit. My father was as a resident alien all the way up till about 5 years ago when I was a teacher, and the importance of voting. He decided he wanted to become a United States citizen so that he can vote for education. So when you say all those words, I think about his story, and when you can connect with your audience, you've hit a home run. So congratulations, and continue mastering that skill.
Thank you. Well, that's the hardest for me, too, is public speaking. So I wanted to congratulate all of you. Is there any past winners from last year? No? Okay. I just want to have one other question. Do you have any family in the military, or I guess what brings out, I guess why did you want to, do this contest and put yourself out there?
Well, my dad was in the military for 31 years, so that was like really inspiring for me to kind of base it off of him and stuff and bring my passion to that.
Thank you. Yeah, my father was in the military also. Thank you. Well, I just want to congratulate all of you. You did a great job. And would you like to get pictures taken with
Each other?
Yeah.
Congratulations, one more time. And last but certainly not least, a huge thank you for the teachers that work very, very hard every single day with these students to make sure that they are successful in what they do. And clearly, we've got some shining stars with us here tonight, but we have 37,000 hardworking students in our district, so it's extremely exciting to be able to recognize a small handful of them this evening. If you missed the Patriotic Speech Contest and you would like to see it, it will be available on the district's YouTube channel by the end of the month. So that is youtube.com/PUSD official channel. So stay tuned and that will be available. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Okay, next item. Next item. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead. Board recognitions. So I guess let's start with Mrs. Connect.
Thank you, Mrs. Pingarelli. I did have the privilege of judging the Patriotic Speech Contest, and I felt like I was in good company because I had 2 military people and 2 educators on my panel, so I knew that we had all the bases covered. it's one of the things that we do that make you feel, so it reaffirms the good work that's done here. The writing was great, the speaking was great, the topics were great. It was really a wonderful way to spend a morning. It was Read Across America week, and I got a chance to read in a Skyview kindergarten. That is always such a pleasurable experience. Those kids are just adorable. And this last week this week, it all runs together, was the patron tour. So thanks to Frontier and to Sunrise Mountain for hosting several people from the district and also many people from the broader community. And I would say, if any of you haven't attended one of those patron tours, please make sure you can do that. What a great opportunity to see how broad our programming is and how it meets the needs of so many kids, and how much fun kids are having in our classrooms, and how hard our teachers work. It really is phenomenal. And I have a recommendation on that, and I guess this would go to Erin today. As we move forward on other patron tours, maybe we could remind our teachers, when I know they have friends and colleagues who aren't exactly sure what it is their daily world is like, and have teachers reach out to their friends and neighbors and invite them to the patron tour. It's really an important behind-the-scenes view of what's going on in this big, wonderful thing called public education in our community. So it was a great day.
Mrs. Ceja Martinez?
Thank you. I couldn't agree more, Kathy. And to add to that list of recommendations for the patron tour is see if we can invite some of our teachers into those feeder schools that can see at the elementary level, that go into the high school. When you do the tour, all their hard work that has been put forward, and to see their product, the students' products come out in the classroom, and it's quite fascinating. I grew up here in Peoria, and I do not know everything, and when you go to those classrooms, you literally are blown away. So thank you, and everybody who set that up in the community for getting involved. I've been quite busy the past couple months. I want to take some time to acknowledge our legislative districts 21, Sun City, Precinct Chairman Mr. Thompson, Sun City West Precinct Ms. Eileen Mueller, Legislative District 29, House of Representative Andrade, Legislative District 21 for the Democrats. They all invited me out there. I invited Dr. Stifler. He was able to join for just a hello. They were so impressed. The comments that they received was, we've never had Peoria superintendent in one of our precinct meetings, and they were proud and enthusiastic to meet Dr. Stifler. So he lived up to everything we have mentioned about him. So thank you, Dr. Stifler, and so that is great news. I've had the opportunity to meet with City Council Member Ray Melnar. The City of Glendale invited all of us to attend the State of the City address for the City of Glendale, all the great things. I've had opportunity to meet Mayor Wires, and we look forward to that partnership going forward. And then ultimately Read Across America. My favorite is going back into that classroom. I had opportunity to go to Sundance. Ms. Silva, Mary Schuett invited me to visit with the kindergarten class, and then Skyview, second grade, Mrs. Ladd. And all in all, at the end of the day, the teachers, the community, the advisors, what makes Peoria stand out. So thank you again for everybody's participation.
Mrs. Stone?
I don't have anything at this time.
Mr. Sandoval?
So, yes, there's a lot that went on over the past month and a half. A lot of exciting things that just continue to certainly communicate, the best practices, and certainly again the difference, the PUSD difference. I did have the opportunity to redo a first grade class at Sundance over the Read Across America week, so I do as well acknowledge Ms. Schuett. But I think more importantly than and I was certainly grateful for the invite, but more importantly was what I saw in about 65 first graders in the room as I was reading. what I noticed were, individuals that were, seemed to be having fun while learning. And, those types of environments that our teachers and staff, continue to create in our schools, environments of safe and support and inspiration, it shined through. So I definitely want to recognize those individuals at Sundance Elementary, and again, certainly Mrs. Schuett. So good week, and the patron tour as well. Again, saw the individuals who attended. Certainly, I think be wowed, by the passion and pride that, everyone has, on the campuses that were visited. And certainly, again, I mentioned it earlier, we do have very unique business values as a district that separate us from the competition, that truly our metrics, are aligned with that, and just put our students in a position to be very successful in college, career, and life.
Thank you. I just wanted to extend my thanks to Glendale Mayor Wires. I was able to go to the State of the City. That was a very nice evening with Mr. Sandoval and Mrs. Martinez. So that's all I have. I wasn't able to get to a few of the other things this time, but I appreciate the hospitality. So let's move on to the next item. Request to address the governing board regarding matters not included on the agenda. First will be Cassidy Gatros.
Cassidy Gatros, 8940 West Olive Avenue, Unit Number 6, Peoria, Arizona, 85345. Good evening, Dr. Darwin Stifler, President Pingarelli, members of the board, and members in the community. On behalf of the City of Peoria's Youth Advisory Board program, we would like to thank the governing board member, Ms. Kathy Connect. Last month, February 14th, Ms. Kathy Connect took the time out of her schedule to speak to the City of Peoria's Youth Advisory Board. Her presentation was very powerful to our board members. Thank you, Ms. Kathy Connect. I would like to hone in on a couple of topics from last month's study session. The freshman laptops and programs for students at Raymond S. Kellis that Dr. Darwin Stifler and my principal, Mr. Wooten, who did a great job speaking about. Many students leave school early or miss school for a variety of reasons, whether if they are involved with a school activity, school business, doctor's appointments, personal reasonings, etc. Our laptops are an amazing tool for each student. They are equipped with phenomenal programs that students can access, like Microsoft 365, which includes Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, and other programs like Kahoot, where we can have interactive quizzes. This has allowed many students, including myself, to take leadership to be more accountable for our academic future. Thank you to the Tohono O'odham Nation for a wonderful grant, and to the PUSD and Raymond S. Kellis High School for allowing many students to excel. On February 27th and 28th, the JW Marriott Resort in Tucson, Arizona hosted the DECA State Championship competition. A big thank you to their resort and their employees, to my teachers, Ms. Nygaard and Mr. Moreno, along with many of their volunteers and judges who came out to support this event. There was a big turnout of students who came all over the state of Arizona. Also, a big thank you to the CTE programs and the PUSD and Dr. Patty Beltram. The marketing programs give students the tools and skills for DECA. As a former student of Cotton Bowl Elementary, I would like to thank Principal Snyder, Vice Principal Dr. Carmen Marsden, 8th grade teacher Ms. Melissa Bockenselli, and my head advisor for the City of Peoria's Youth Advisory Board Mr. George Colebrook. On Monday, March 6th, Cotton Bowl Elementary allowed me to do a presentation to speak to the students about the City of Peoria's Youth Advisory Board program. Students were inquisitive and intrigued about the program. Cotton Bowl Elementary is having a fundraiser on March 16th at Chipotle from 4 to 8 p.m. at Westgate in Glendale. Please come out and support their school for a good cause. In closing, I want to ask everyone in the community and viewers at home to put forward education in our schools so many students, including myself, can continue to benefit from programs that allows us as students to succeed. We as a community can work together to help our schools in the PUSD. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one more speaker, Jennifer Unathan. Excuse me, Unathan. Sure. Okay, you have the one copy, so that's good.
So hello, I'm Jennifer Jonathan. I'm a resident of North Peoria, and my subdivision is being impacted by the proposed boundary rezoning. I spent the good portion of my day speaking to Carla Lemanyan, Terrell Harris, and Wendy Davey at the Peoria Unified School District, and it's clear that I'm speaking to a group of caring individuals who are truly trying to find the best solution given the lack of money to build new schools in north of Deer Valley. First, let me say that I know that the Peoria Unified School District has a number of good schools. If the proposed map change is approved, my son will no longer be attending Sunset Heights. He will be going to Coyote Hills. I'm sure you're thinking, what's the big deal? Coyote Hills is a fine school. I'm here to proclaim as a mother, it's not my intention to give my son a good education. It's my duty to ensure he receives the best education. I purchased my home 1 year ago in the Peoria Mountain Vista subdivision on 91st Avenue and Lake Pleasant Parkway, specifically so that my son could attend Sunset Heights. The community itself was designed with walking trails and paved sidewalks that lead to Sunset Heights, not Coyote Hills. Without a question, the proposed boundary line needs to move further east to include the students living west of 91st Avenue. I've been brainstorming with the staff I mentioned earlier and learned quite a bit from them. So without any further delay, here are my suggestions and my questions. I hope they serve to help. One, the developer assistant agreements, also known as DAAs, should continue to be negotiated by the city of Peoria from a position of strength. I understand that builder assistance can come in the form of land grants and $1,000 per parcel. This should be a minimum requirement for all builders because, to be honest with you, if the city doesn't have the money to pay for new schools being built where development is coming, then they should use anything and everything in their bag of tricks to either slow down the new development builders or get them to give more money for the schools to be built. As it is now, the DAA money is only used to enhance existing schools. Look for number two, look for lease options in North Peoria for 6th and 8th graders where the building can be retrofitted. Number three, I'd like the boundary committee to be less conservative with the numbers of the projections and fight for funding. Okay. Also, number four, consider reissuing a special bond this fall. Last year's election was unprecedented and caused a lot of voter dissolution. Many folks didn't vote. Others didn't know what they were voting for or against. Now that we see the impact for the 2016 school bond not passing, I know the bond will pass the second time around. I and a group of neighbors would like to offer our services in garnering support for the bond measure through grassroots advocacy. Two neighbors are sitting right here. Say hello. I have more, trust me, they just couldn't make it. And lastly, consider advocating for legislation that would allow the state of Arizona to impose a Mello-Roos tax on new communities that can give the Peoria Unified School District needed revenue to build new schools. I come from California and had no qualms paying this tax when I purchased a new condo at the age of 25. I knew it was a value added to my property even though I didn't have any kids at the time. It's only fair that the homeowners of these new communities have some skin in the game and pay for the public schools needed for their own community. I was told that as it is now, the state doesn't have a property tax that goes towards financing new schools. I guess we would have to vote for that in. As a resident, I am happy to organize a calling campaign from Peoria residents to appropriate legislatures if they won't listen to your feedback. Again, fight for funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Excuse me, President Pingarelli, it might be appropriate to remind the audience, the clapping is awesome. That's a problem, that you're not allowed to respond beyond clapping right now.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
there's no dialogue for public comment.
The board can only discuss what was on the agenda. You can discuss anything you'd like, and the board is glad to hear it. I'm going to speak for them right here, but they're prohibited by the open meeting law from responding. So please don't take their lack of responding for anything except for you heard the patriotism before and their civic duty. Their civic duty is not to respond right now.
That doesn't mean we won't talk about it in the future.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that, Dr. Stifler.
Yes, ma'am.
Next item. Address agenda and consider adoption or recommended changes. This is if the board needs to change anything on the agenda. Judy?
No.
David?
No, ma'am.
Kathy? No. Monica? No. Okay. No? We're good to go. Next item is number 7, consideration of recommendation for the appointment of the Chief Instructional Officer. And Dr. Stifler, who is?
It is me.
Okay.
My honor. Ms. Pingarelli, members of the board, a few months ago, you empowered the superintendent to begin working on a new organization plan, and we have been working on that, and we have been working hard at that. So let me read what I have here so I don't keep saying the same thing over. An extensive interview process of 25 internal and external applicants was conducted for the Chief Instructional Officer position, allowing input from certified and administrative staff representing the Greater Peoria Unified School District workforce. The position will be responsible for supervising executive directors, school-based administrators, extracurricular activities, career and technical education, and the director of preschool and the administrators of our flex and med academies. Basically, this is the position that makes sure that the wheels are on the bus and we go round and round and that our schools run smoothly and effectively, and those pieces to help me with that. I am so pleased to be able to recommend to you that the governing board approve the appointment of Mr. Steve Savoy for the position of Chief Instructional Officer, and that my further recommendation that upon approval, should you do so, that he be compelled to come to the microphone and answer very difficult questions from you and tell us how he's going to serve the district. There be my recommendation, Madam President.
Okay. Well, could I have a motion and a second? And then we will have Mr. Savoy come up.
Well, as is our practice, can we have a little conversation before
I'm
we have
sorry.
a motion? That's fine. So just to follow up with a one-on-one conversation I had with you, Dr. Stifler.
Yes, ma'am.
The title is Chief Instructional Officer, but this is different from your other officer.
If I can take a moment to
Yes,
explain.
please.
So formerly, we had a deputy superintendent. That person was in charge for all aspects. We have split that position into 2 different pieces. One piece is about making sure that our schools run smoothly, interfacing with the community and those sorts of pieces. The other piece that we have not completed the process for is for Chief Academic Support Officer. So that's what should be the nature of what should our lesson planning look like? What should our curriculum look like? How should we be delivering special education services, gifted services, ELL services? All of those pieces, we're still in process on that one. And those 2 people will work together along with me to ensure that the district is going the way that it's supposed to go.
So what has traditionally been curriculum and instruction would be under the other position.
Would be under academic support. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I think the word instructional
Right?
throws me. But with that said, I'm happy to support your recommendation.
Thank you, ma'am.
I like Mr. Savoy.
Seha Martinez?
He's a good job.
I do have a question. With adding on to that information, can you just clarify what duties, tasks will he be in charge of?
Well, the most important part of the contract will be the part that says, and other duties as assigned, okay? I want to be very clear on that. I'm not really kidding, all right? This is a big, proud operation that runs very smoothly. The principal, this is about supporting principals and making sure that our schools run smoothly. Directly underneath this position, not hired, not selected yet, are 3 I'm blanking, executive directors who will directly supervise the principals. Okay, so Mr. Savoy, should he be approved, will not be directly supervising the principals. He'll be arranging for the continued growth and improvement of principals, along with myself and the chief academic support officer. He'll be interfacing, for instance, he's been doing this for a long time, for instance, with Peoria and Glendale police departments to make sure that we're in sync with them and how we work with them. All of those sorts of things. It's about, if there's a problem with discipline, I'll be asking Mr. Savoy, where are we on that? If there's an issue on student attendance, I'll be asking Mr. Savoy, do we have a process to take care of that? Those sorts of things. Regarding the design of curriculum and instruction, that's almost like an architect kind of a position. That's the position we're still in process for.
Thank you.
Mrs. Doan, do you have any questions?
I think I'd like to hear from Mr. Savoy.
That's what I was trying to jump to, I guess.
Up here.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yeah, so it absolutely sounds like you went through a very extensive process to narrow it down to the right individual to sit in this seat, so I agree. Love to hear more from Mr. Savoy.
Okay, I guess with that, I would need a motion and a second, so we can.
That would be
That would
what
be
I would
good.
recommend. Yes, ma'am.
I will recommend that we approve the appointment of Mr. Savoy as the Chief Instructional Officer.
I will second that.
All right, thank you. It's a voting item. Members, please cast your vote. It passes 5-0. Go figure.
Governing board members, please don't leave out the hard questions.
Mr. Savoy, thank you. Would you like to say a few comments before we ask you questions, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Very briefly. President Pingarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler, I want you to know that I am incredibly humbled by this appointment, the trust that you place in me, the faith that you have in me to take the responsibility of this assignment. I'm incredibly humbled. At the same time, I am phenomenally excited about this chance. I look forward to working with all of our teams across the district to enhance the performance of our district and the progress that we've made. I've had a lot of help along the way, a lot of help from a lot of great people who have taught me a lot, and I tried to be a good student, and I kept working at getting better, but people took time to help me, and I look forward to that opportunity to help others. And to that point, I have three phenomenal people here with me tonight. If I could just take a minute to introduce them. They're just phenomenal people. I have my mom, Patricia Savoy. Mom, stand up. Come on. I have my mother, yeah. My mother-in-law, Mrs. Jean Ludis Herman. And partner, and a lot of you know Carol, who's just amazing. She herself served the Peoria district for 28 years, and she's my rock. So thank you very much. It means a great deal.
Well, thank you very much. We're glad to have you.
Now the questions.
They're usually not that bad. Mrs. Doan?
Oh, I may have more than one, but. So do you expect to put in more hours than you are now?
You asked that, Mrs. Doan. My wife has already noticed a few more hours already in the last couple days, so it feels like we're just rolling right into that. I'm absolutely, positively sure that will happen. But as I shared with the interview group, one of the things that I always strive to do is be available with my phone or email, or certainly personal visits, and I will strive to do that.
So Can you give me just a very brief description in your words, not in the technical terms or anything? What is it that you are going to do? Are you going to be dealing, with every school, or what are your words on that?
President Pangarelli, members of the board. Over the last couple of days, in the folks that I work with very, very closely, word leaked a little bit, and I certainly been nervous prior to tonight about this appointment. But one of the things I kept hearing over and over was, just be you, just be you, just be you. And so that's what I want to do. And so what does that mean? It means that I'm someone who's very passionate about what Peoria Unified School District represents. I'm passionate about the people, about the students. I had a chance to be at the speech contest with many of you, and one of the first things I said to all of the parents at the conclusion of that speech contest is, we are in great hands. These young people are amazing, the things that they can do and the things that they can accomplish. And so it's really everything we do and the words that we say and the actions that we engage in every day that sets an example for everyone. And I really want to hold myself true to that. I will also say that working with Dr. Stifler these last 6 months, he's challenged my thinking. And that's what I like about continuing to grow. That's what I like about this opportunity, about the future, about innovation, about enabling and empowering people to have freedom in the classroom, to support and really challenge students and allow that freedom to occur. It's kind of the adage of, can you teach this old dog some new tricks? Absolutely, and I'm open to that. And that's what I've enjoyed so far in this new journey over the last 6 months.
I know you'll be working with the, community and stuff. Will you be working with parents as well?
President Pangarelli, members of the board, I feel like that's something that is just part of the day-to-day operation. I was really inspired by the remarks of our parent that spoke here a few moments ago about the boundary process that's going on currently. We have a great team working on that. It's challenging. We're engaged very closely with a lot of parents. So I do see that as part of my day-to-day operation. One thing I'll say about all the folks that we work with every day is we strive to be responsive when parents have concerns or questions. I really feel like that's something that, as an entire organization, from the classroom to the district office, parents are part of the team. I mean, we're all parents in this room. Our children went to these schools. It's a two-way street, constant communication. So yes, to answer your question in the short form, it feels ubiquitous, myself and parents. So I'll continue that.
I want to say congratulations, and to your wife, I'm sorry you're going to be a widow, from him being at work so much, like a football widow, only a district widow. But we appreciate your work, and I'm hoping to see more of it.
Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
So, Mr. Savoy, congratulations again. My question for you is, in and around, when we take a look at overall culture within an organization, and how we really motivate and really inspire, our teachers and staff, so as they come to work, it's, not out of obligation, it's again more, out of inspiration than anything else. So you've certainly been in a leadership role, and I think this scope of work or your breadth of service is now, much broader than it was. How do you propose, or and not really propose, and you've answered a little bit with your earlier statements, but how do you seek to continue, the culture that PUSD certainly takes pride in?
President Pangarelli, members of the board, as you were asking, and I was reflecting upon that question, the first person that came to mind is Harvey Mackey. I don't know if you read Mr. Mackey's article, but he's published every Monday, Arizona Republic. He started out selling envelopes, one of the greatest salesmen of all time, and he always writes every week about a different skill or trait that he tries to impart upon all of us. And a couple weeks ago, what he wrote about was just what you're talking about, the culture of an organization. And it's the number one thing that keeps people in an organization is the culture. And so, how will we continue to do that? It's valuing each and every person as an individual, meeting them where they're at, being a good listener. My team will tell you I struggle with that sometime. I'm already moving on to the next thing. For about 5 years, my password on my computer was listen. I thought I accomplished that goal, so I took it off. But I mean that. You have to be a good listener. You have to work at that. You need to value people and allow people to have ideas and engage and push themselves as well, have that freedom to do that. I think that all speaks to the culture. I'll stop there.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Connect?
Here's a hard question.
Okay.
And we were a lot younger when we met, you and me. No, that's not the question. That's just a comment. You and I, we were a lot younger when we met. Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
yes. My hair was not white.
Oh, no, that's fine. So, no, but here's a question.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
My understanding of what the job entails might require you to be the bad cop sometimes. Can you be the bad cop?
President Pangarelli, members of the board, I've had those opportunities over the last 12 years, certainly working here at the district office as a K-12 administrator. I think about all the opportunities that we have to learn, and we've been through a lot of things, the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, and we did a lot of book studies on Good to Great, Built to Last, and one of the remarkable pieces that you come away with is a comment about confronting the brutal facts. And it's not always easy, but sometimes that needs to happen. So what's important is Peoria Unified School District. I always remember, take care of this place, take care of each other, take care of yourself. And we try to live by that mantra. And so we want to take care of Peoria Unified School District. So when there's a tough decision to be made, if it's right for children and it's right for our district, then we'll make those tough calls.
Thank you very much for that. I think this is a nice mix. We have a new board and a new superintendent. You certainly have a rich history with the Peoria Unified School District and lots of experience in the field. So I think you have a lot to offer to the position. Now with your responsibilities of really managing all the principals, I hope that we as a district will continue to invest in your professional development. And so you can bring to us and to the people that report to you the best practices on how to manage our school sites to get the best always and forever with our kids and our staff.
President Pangarelli, Mrs. Connect, I appreciate that. And I'm grateful for that support to help me be better and to continue to learn. So that's a great comment to hear tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mrs. Seja Martinez?
Congratulations, Mr. Savoy.
Thank you.
And thank you for your dedication to our district. Hold dear and near to my heart, as you know. And you said a lot of great things, key words like work. I love that word. But it's never work when it means so much to you. It just happens. And so the things that you're saying, hands-on and reaching out to the community, I hear that. Now, you've had a lot of history in our district, and I'll use one of David's words, is complacent. How are you going to prevent complacency? What's your own personal action plan of changing things up?
President Pangarelli, Mrs. Seja Martinez, I don't think our principals will let me be complacent. I was asked the question during the interview process, what will I do in the first 100 days? I believe the question was. First thing is I want to visit every single school. I want to go visit every single school. I've worked for a long time with the Cactus Group, Liberty Group, Sunrise Mountain, are groups that I've worked with in the past very, very closely. I've been to all the schools in the district, but I want to go visit again. And I think the other piece that I shared with the group during that process is I see a great opportunity to what Ms. Connect just spoke about is developing leaders. One of the things that I feel very, very important about that won't allow me to be complacent is for the district for the next 127 years needs to continue to build that foundation and develop great leaders that will do great things for public education, not only at their school and with the children in their classrooms, but the advocacy at state, local, and national levels. And we can do that through our leadership. So there's no time to be complacent. We are always, it seems, under fire. And I feel that we're always having to respond to that. But you know what? It's a good fight. It's the right fight. And no one can be complacent, not 1 minute.
Excellent. That's great to hear. That's a great segue because I put in my statement, leaders create leaders. And I know you will be at the very top of this organization, and what a privilege. But we can't forget down below the little ones, our students. What is your path to encourage leadership with them, because you will be a role model for their future?
President Pangarelli, Mrs. Sehel Martinez, great question. I served as principal at Desert Valley Elementary School for a period of 9 years. Well, actually 5 years of that was as principal, 4 years was assistant principal. I had two things I talked in every single classroom. I always did it the first day of school, and then every day I went in the classroom, I talked about two things. We're about two things, students. We're about student achievement, and we're about student leadership. And I would talk to students over and over and over that we're going to build student leaders here on this campus to make a difference and an impact. And I would always follow the students as they migrated over to Ironwood High School. So who were the kids that were on student council at Ironwood? Did they come from Desert Valley? Who's the student body president? I would always check that because we wanted to build student leaders. We have an incredibly robust student activity program in our district. Many of you have attended our Plus Days that we hold each year annually. We're building leaders at the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We're engaging them with high school students. Myself and a couple of my K-12 colleagues just attended the Unity Day about a week and a half ago at Centennial High School. Watching those high school students engage, all the high schools from our district were there. They're working together, they're workshopping, they're collaborating with one another to build that unity as a whole district, even though we have 7 high schools. And there's the rivalries and the competitions that we see on the fields. But your student leaders are working towards synergy of an entire district. I know that Dr. Stifler meets quarterly with our student body presidents, has the student body luncheon. And I've attended quite a few of those. It's remarkable to hear the students, we value and garner their input. And the questions that we're dealing with the board or with our community, with our public, Superintendent Stifler will ask the students those questions, and we want their feedback. So we have a lot of avenues at reaching out to our students. The key is building those leaders even younger, because they're never too young to, not learn about leadership. It's about advocating for oneself, being able to stand up and say, this is important to me, or I don't want you to treat me that way. So we have teachers doing that with students in classrooms. And as a district, an organization, we do have great platforms to build student leaders.
Well, thank you, and I look forward, in the education world, in the classroom, and teachers, we all say proximity, so I hope that we can see you in those classrooms as well as working with the district administration and the governing board. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, there's a lot of great questions so far. I have a tough one for you. How many years have you been in the district? I thought I'd end with a really hard one.
Members of the board, I was hoping to avoid that question.
Okay.
In fact, when they asked me that question, I was like, oh.
Okay, I can take it back. That's okay.
No, it's all right. I'll tell you, I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of our district. And I was thinking today, as a young man who moved west, and I was asked this question during the interview, what was one of your greatest personal or professional accomplishments? And it was when I said, when I became a teacher. I didn't expect that to happen. And November 12th, 1981, Unit 1 Landmark School, 6th grade, Doug Stevenson's class. I'll never forget the day I walked in as a substitute teacher, and I knew within 30 seconds I would do this the rest of my life. So in 1982, I was hired as a teacher at Desert Palms Elementary School by Mr. Ray Mitakawa, and he was a man who changed my life. and I served as a teacher for 12 years at Desert Palms and Sundance, and then had the great opportunity to be a school administrator both at Desert Valley and El Toloma before coming here. So if you add that up, it's probably, I think, well, I don't know if we remember when we met that long ago, right? Yeah, probably well over 30 years.
Okay. I'm glad
And I'm proud of every one of them.
We've only known each other for a little over 2 years, and it's been an honor working with you. And I just wanted to say congratulations and for your new position. And thank you for your family coming tonight. It's very special to have loved ones around you.
Gonna need them.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next item. Next item? Sorry. And I just want to say thank you for Ms. McCarty for moving things forward, so I appreciate it. Number 8, presentation and possible action on the 2017-18 budget development, including possible direction to administration. Mr. Hicks, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Darwin Stifler, colleagues and community members. I'm here tonight really just to introduce Ms. Barbara Barkus. She's a member of our budget team, and as you remember from our process, it is to have a member of our budget team once a month come up, give a little update, and allow the board to ask where we are and give any feedback or input to our members. So, Ms. Barkus.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, Ms. Pingarelli, Dr. Stifler, members of the board, community members. My name is Barbara Barkus, and I am a teacher at Skyview Elementary and represent PEA on the Budget Committee. I'm honored to be here tonight and share what we've been talking about as much as we can outside of the committee process. We met last week, and we have been going through the process of what our priorities are as a committee and as what directives we have from the board to work on with the budget. I'm trying to think of the politically correct way to say this, but the state doesn't give us much money. So that has been a bit of a challenge on where our priorities can be, because we know the salaries are something that we need to focus on too. With Prop 206 increasing our salaries for our classified staff, but also still looking at increasing wages for our certified administrative staff. So we have been going through that budget process, looking at every penny and where it is being spent and where we could get more from. We did get good news from APS that it looks like we're going to be saving or not paying, at least. Not paying as much. I'm not going to say that it's less than this year, but it's not going up as much. It's about $150,000 less. So that is good news. I stand for any questions that you have.
Mrs. Doan?
So we were given a percentage that APS was going to go up. What was the actual percentage?
Madam President, members of the board, sorry, I don't mean to take, percent was the increase, what they were projected and which has gone to the Arizona Corporation Commission. Their press release, I think it was last week, was on different rates, but on average it'll only go up about 2%. On the flip side, we have SRP, who is rebating us and reducing their rates by 1%, so you do have that dynamic. And as I've mentioned before, this is a more dynamic rate case that they're asking for, because normally you have staff put into their recommendations, you have multiple groups are all weighing in on this. The school districts, I think as was asked last time, is represented by Attorney Tim Hogan, as school districts have a say at this process. And this is part of their negotiated amount. I have not heard any of the groups saying yes, they're in favor of it, but this was the press release from APS to reduce their rate increase down, that would have an impact that would save us about $150,000.
Is this just for the school?
It's for all. They're having rate case changes is for almost every single one of their components. They have tons of different rate categories, and this was affecting almost all of them.
Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
So the only question I have is, when we take a look at our budgets for our school year, and, we allocate monies, for across all positions, right? And at times, there are certain individuals' positions that either don't report back, resign, et cetera. That line item, I don't know what to call it other than absentee monies or dollars that are realized as a result of, those allocations not being fulfilled by individuals. What does that line item look like? And also what are our options, as a district to how can we actually apply those dollars?
Madam President, members of the board, that's called vacancy savings. So when you have a position that you budgeted for and it's not there, there's a savings. If it comes to a teacher, you move it over, it's just subs. We have a sub budget, so there's cost in there. That is something that I would say we normally let just play out. So it's just a part of our budget process. If we have a lot of people that we can't hire, there'll be a greater savings, and we'll roll over a greater amount as our carry forward the following year. If you reallocate that and then you then fill that position, you now double spent that dollar. And so the conservative way of approach is that we budget for positions, we know what we could afford, we try to fill all of them. If there isn't filling, it just allows for rolling over and allows for more flexibility the following year.
Got it. Thank you.
Mrs. Connect?
Nothing, thank you.
Mrs. Seha Martinez?
I don't have a question. It just makes it very challenging for a governing board to have study session or make decisions if it's hard to not see all the information. And with contracts just going out, we're using last year's data, or current year funding, and going forward. So I look forward to hearing the full picture on where all the numbers are going, so that way we can make an informed decision going forward.
And the next presentation would be?
Just a comment on that. For us, too, it is difficult to actually make any really big decisions right now because we don't have a budget from the state. So we're estimating the dollars that we're working with. Yes, we have been having a discussion and looking at, based off of the dollars that we see, what types, what percentages of raises that we could try to find for groups. But again, we are also in the same position that you're in. We don't know. And even for teachers for 301, I'm still getting questions on a daily basis. What does that look like? We won't even have those numbers from the state, I think, till March 31st. And then Ken's going to need some time to look at the number of teachers and how that's going to break down to what that performance pay is going to be. So a lot of our discussions in the committee right now are more of big, broad ideas of what is our primary purpose and how do we want to get there, and looking at different pots of money and how it's spent, and the different ways we could allocate those funds to do some of the things that we really want to do, like blended learning, and what does that look like, and get to at least a 2-to-1 device per student, but then where does that money come from something else? So those are the big, broad discussions we're having. And when we have those big, broad discussions, if we talk about all of those things that we've kind of thrown on the wall outside of that committee before we have a vote to bring it forward, then lots of rumors start and lots of people worry about positions and things like that, and that shouldn't happen. So we want to make sure that we keep that within our group, and we do ask outside of our group when we get to the point where we're like, let's go outside and bring this outside and see what our individual groups, teachers, administrators, classified staff think about this particular situation, and then we bring it back and have a discussion and decide whether we're going to bring it forward or not. Does that kind of clear it up with a little bit?
And Mr. Hicks, when is the next update? Would that be next month?
We put it because just in case there's something, if the board hears something or wants to act on it, we put it on the first meeting of every month because
Okay.
that's our action item. We don't put them on study sessions because those are reserved for those study sessions. So
Okay,
it'll
well-
be April.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for
Next item. Discussion and consideration of employee health benefits for 2017-18. Dr. Carter Davidson, thank you.
All right. Just waiting for the presentation to come up. Good. All right. Well, good evening, President Pingarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. We're here this evening to give you some information that I believe you can hang your hat on. It is the full package, and we're going to give you the opportunity to weigh in on our proposed benefits changes and our recommendations for the next school year. With some very important news that I really believe is important as it relates to our plan for recruiting and retaining our employees. We're going to start tonight with a view of our medical benefits, some of the proposed changes, and what it means to our employees and their pockets. First and foremost, take a look at your screen there, and that first item, nice and big. Our goal is to keep our employee premiums flat, and that means no additional cost to our employees. There are some plan changes that we'd like you to consider this evening. First and foremost, we do have 3 different plan offerings. These changes you see right now are dedicated to the traditional PPO plan, and the first change we would ask you to consider is that we would increase our urgent care copayment from $40 to $50. That simply is to align with industry standards across all of the PPO plans within our system. Secondly, we are asking to move oncology and the OBGYN copayments from $20, where they currently are, to $40, and that's simply to align with all other specialists that our employees have access to. And as you can see there, we're hoping to alleviate any inequities by having a variety of specialists carved out from any of the others. As we continue into the other plans, the high deductible health plans, we're looking at changing the contributions that we give into those health plans. Right now, in the HDHP, which is the high deductible health plan, the 2600 model, we'd be going from $1,250 to $1,000, and then in the buy-up model, the $1,300 model, would be going to a zero contribution from $375. And you might be asking yourself, hey, where is that money going? We'd be using it to increase the wellness contributions with the hopes of incentivizing our employees to really fully engage and engage further inside our wellness portion of our benefits package. As you can see there, our Well Styles program, or the wellness program, we currently dedicate $400 for completion of the wellness activities, and our hope is to adjust that award to $775, and also that our wellness plan aligns with our medical plan year from July 1 through June 30. This screen here, I believe, can really help you see the changes. If you look on the left side of the screen, the 1300 plan, you can see there that in past years, we've had a $375 base contribution as well as the $400 contribution, which lends itself to the $775 there in total. With the proposal, we will be moving all of the contribution to the Well Styles program for a total to remain at $775. When you look at the 2600 plan, you will see the change there as well from base to Well Styles contribution, which lends itself to an additional funding for a total of $1,775 there if you run the base plan. The 2600 plan is our base plan. The 1300 plan is a little bit of a change and a buy-up option, and then, of course, the PPO that I've already discussed. This just showcases the monthly premiums for starting with employees only. These is basically some information for you there. You can see that there is a buy-up for the PPO plan at $86.80 a month, while those other 2 plans are, there is no particular premium there for employees. And I'll just let you take a look. I don't probably need to read every slide to you here, but these are our monthly premiums for our employees with their spouse. If our employees have children on their plan, you can see the differences there. Again, these are monthly fees. This is employee plus an entire family. Along with those changes mentioned, we, inside of the medical piece of this presentation today, we're looking to move to what we would call the value plan for our pharmaceuticals. That would exclude 3 core vendors inside the plan. You can see here that CVS, Safeway, and Costco would be impacted to our, I should say impacted. Our employees can still utilize these companies for their pharmaceuticals. However, the cost would not be at a reduced rate, nor would their contributions go against their deductibles. The reason you can see there that we would be considering this as an option is that 80% of our employees are currently getting their pharmaceuticals from this value network, and it can reduce, or I should say not necessarily reduce, it would allow us to save $120,000 to $150,000 based on our current year data, and that's that money we'd like to use to increase the wellness portion of our benefits package. So this slide here is just simply a summary of those recommendations and cost. Again, just revisiting the decrease in the district contributions on those high deductible health plans, increasing our wellness, modifying a bit the copayment to our urgent care as well as our specialist, and then moving to the value network. With that being said, and before I move to the dental portion, I field any questions or comments you may have.
Could you go back to that last slide, please?
Yes, ma'am?
Okay. Decreased district contributions, so that's a savings to the district.
No, ma'am. If Mrs. Connect, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to take you back just to this part here. I think it's this one here. So the district contribution is a certain amount of money that was given to the employees simply for selecting that 2600 plan or that 1300 plan, and that money goes into a health savings account. So we are decreasing that portion of the base contribution, but moving the change of that piece, the extra money, into the wellness portion. So when you look at the totals there at the bottom, the proposed, for the 1300 buy-up model, it would remain the same at 775. But for those employees, which is, I believe, roughly 55% or so of our employees are already on the 2600 plan, it would be an increase in opportunity for resources inside their health savings account.
Instead of getting a lump sum there, they can earn even more, is what he's saying, through the healthy wealth styles. Dr. Davidson, you're doing well. Let me try and be less technical. The health savings accounts, as the law made those available, districts across the country wanted to incentivize people to do that and put a rather large number to there because it's much less costly for the district to do that, so that the employees had health savings accounts that they could access. Okay? What we're seeing across the state, across the nation really, is that employers are, because the goal was to incentivize to get people to those plans, was to then gradually move away from that really high incentive. But what you're seeing here on our district is what we really want is healthy employees. So how can we reward people for being healthy? So as we reduce that incentive, to give it back in another way. Is that a fairly said?
That is correct, sir.
So WellStyles is our HSA.
No, ma'am.
WellStyles is our rewards program for having a healthy lifestyle, for attending our health benefits fair, for going to a gym, for calling the nurse on the phone and getting coached, for all of those sorts of things. And our people will enroll in those programs, which ideally they'll be healthier, and we'll put cash back in their pocket because it will cost us less to run our insurance program.
And when you say put it back in their pocket, it's a direct payment to the employees?
Yes, ma'am. It goes into their health savings account. And with those high deductible health plans, they create those health savings account, and that money goes into their account essentially, and they can use it indefinitely. Even if they were to leave the district, that is their money.
So could that accumulate 775 or whatever the number is year over year?
Over time, yes, ma'am, it sure can, depending upon the health of the individual.
And Mr. Sandoval, you had a question?
Yeah, Dr. Davidson, can you further define the Well Styles program? And where I'm headed is, you know, when we take a look at, you know, all of our staff, administrators, teachers, et cetera, you know, one, people with disabilities, two, teachers who may have a second job, you know, I guess accessibility, you know, for all.
Certainly, I'd like to do that. If you don't mind, I'm going to switch over to the document camera here. I brought a piece just in case we needed to go there. You guys, you got it? Okay. All right, so hopefully, Mr. Sandoval and members of the governing board, this will support that conversation. You can see here currently with our high deductible plans, an employee who chooses to really make an extra effort to earn those wellness dollars there, you see a variety of things they can do. They can earn 800 points out of the needed 1,200 there at the top by simply getting their annual wellness exam. They can attend our annual health fair and earn an additional 200 points. And again, I probably don't need to read everything to you, but you can see that there's a variety of things there that we would ask our people to know, to get to know their numbers to support a healthy lifestyle. Many of them don't require any type of physical activity, simply making an effort to be aware of your health and wellness. And for the PPO option, you can see there that we require two specific things, the wellness exam and the survey that is done as it relates to understanding yourself and your overall wellness, and then two other optional ideas, as you can see there at the bottom, from, again, any type of a variety of screenings to tracking your exercise, amount of exercise. So there are some things our employees can do, but we feel currently in our program that we have a wide range for our employees to have access to.
Thank you.
Yeah, Martinez, did you have a question?
I do. Let's continue on that topic. So with the wellness program, and there are two parts I want to take with this conversation. What is the % of employees that actually qualified last year for the wellness who received the full amount?
Certainly, and I did bring Ms. Christy Davis here, our benefits representative, to help me with that. Christy, do you know that answer? 32%.
So out of our 4,000 employees that we have, only 32% qualify for the wellness. So the rest of the bucket of money, where does that go?
That is another great question. Mr. Hicks, perhaps you can support that. I'm sorry, I do not have that information.
Madam President, members of the board, we do not allocate. We know what the percentage is, and so that's, we budget exactly how much is there now. We're not assuming that every single person is going to take the $1,770. We wouldn't be able to afford that.
So the goal is to recruit teachers. We're taking money away from one pot to give into another pot, but we already know only 32% of the employees qualify for this benefit. So that's my concern there. The idea of where this came about was, from a teacher standpoint, from my perspective as an employee, we use Valley Schools Trust. Did they make the recommendation, or is this something from the district? Who is taking ownership on this decision?
Certainly. I believe on that particular question, I believe it would probably be a collaborative effort. I think what we find is, as you know, healthcare costs continue to rise, as do pharmaceutical costs. And what our hope would be, as we look at the finite pot of resources we have, that we begin to incentivize our employees to get healthier, to know their numbers, to take advantage of the resources that are there, so that our costs don't continue to rise, and that I could be here next year in front of you saying, hey, for the 5th year in a row, Peoria Unified School District has not had to increase its contributions on behalf of its employees. That would be the hope. On behalf of the piece that you mentioned, if you don't mind, Ms. Martinez, you had talked about the recruiting aspect and that idea of available funds. I can share with you from being at a Valley Schools meeting recently, Peoria Unified School District contributes a much higher amount of money to our health savings accounts for our employees than do some of our neighboring equal-sized districts. So I left that meeting very proud, thinking, wow, we already do give a great amount of resources, and we're hoping to increase it just in a different way, with the hopes that from the back end we eventually can continue to provide greater services and supports to our educators.
And I appreciate that comment and acknowledge that we do give that higher up, but then the other question or the other side of the coin would be, do we have higher premiums that we're requiring our employees to pay, so it ends up being a wash? But again, it goes back to if our concern is to hire crew and we have, or employees, and we have 4,000 employees, and we are already predicting only 32% are going to go for this program, what if 4,000 employees end up doing the wellness program? How does that affect our district?
Madam President, members of the board, I think it's a great thing. Wellness is not an expense in my mind. It's a long-term investment that has a return on it. The more people that go get physicals, we identify more issues and we address them earlier, and it is much cheaper to address those early on than it is at the end when somebody is already diabetic, for example. If you've learned pre-diabetic, you just saved us tens of thousands of dollars on that one instance. And so
I
we
agree
believe
with
it's
that.
a return. So this could cost an additional $7,500,000. That's a $7,500,000 that's going to our employees. There's a positive, and we're requiring and asking them to do a little bit more on the wellness side so that we identify and they have healthy behaviors and healthy lifestyles that are good for everybody. So this is, to me, a win-win on this situation.
Definitely, I appreciate the concept. My concern is the fiscal responsibility. If we already budgeted only 32% that are going to qualify, what if scenario, if more people,
It would be a great thing in my mind.
right, okay, so financially, we can't afford it
would
if
be
people continue to do this and we shift money.
Yes.
Okay, and then let's switch into another question in regards to tax consequences. So right now, when the money goes into a medical savings account and they get a W-2 form or some kind of reporting document, and they use the money on medical expenses, they don't pay taxes on it, or it is exempt, correct?
Madam President, members of the board, it's an HSA, not an MSA, that we would be going into, and it's going to their own bank account. When they receive it, they don't pay any taxes. It's
Okay.
only when they use that money, when I used the money this last summer, I'll pay taxes on the distribution. So once I do it, but the allocation going into my account, never paid anything. So it's been accruing for 6-7 years, and it's just been building up, and so then I was able to adjust it. When I spend the money on the medical, then you pay some tax on that. You'll have to report it. You'll get a W-2. I received a W-2 from Optima. That's what will happen.
So when we move the money to a wellness account where the employee gets more $750, and they can essentially use it on anything,
Madam President, members of the board, it's going into the HSA. It's the
Right.
same. It's the same account. So it's using for qualified medical expenses.
okay, that was my confusion. I apologize for that. Ultimately, again, if the goal is to recruit more employees, just those increases and changes do not make sense. You stated that we wanted to align with the industry by increasing, we have a majority of our staff women educators, and we go to the women doctor, and we're increasing it by $10 just because of the industry. Is it something that is going to save us money? What does that look like fiscally for Peoria?
Certainly, and I can speak to that. The change in the OBGYN, that piece there, the specialist piece is, for some reason, over time, and I don't know all the history there, but that particular specialist was at a $20 copay, whereas now we're asking to move it to $40 to align it with the other specialists, the cardiologist, maybe the employee who has a stroke and needs to go see a specific doctor, that they would be aligned in the same at $40, essentially more establishing a line of equality for our employees, no matter what their ailment is. That was the intent of that.
So for equality purposes?
Yes, ma'am.
That is it, thank you.
And if you wouldn't mind, I'd just like to clarify before moving into the next piece. We have roughly 2,700 employees that receive our benefits.
Thank you.
And just so we have that number.
Dr. David, go ahead.
Mrs. Doan?
I like to understand that this money, what about employees we have that already have diabetes? Is this taking money out of their pocket to put it, how does that work for those that already have the issues? Because the contribution is less upfront? They're still eligible to do All right.
Despite anybody's ailment, they are eligible for our benefits package and have access to our wellness program here. Yes, ma'am.
So anybody can complete the wellness program
Anybody
if they
who-
desire to.
That's the perfect ending. Yes, ma'am. If they desire to fully engage in it, they certainly can.
And that winds up in actually more money in their HSA
For the yes,
than
ma'am.
we were doing before.
Correct. For the 2600 model, the equivalent and same for the 1300 model.
Okay, and what, are our wellness items, are those free? Or do they have to pay for them, the screenings and those things?
I am of the understanding, Ms. Davis, that they were part of our package. What's that? Yes, ma'am. Our wellness package is covered at 100%.
100%. All right, then I understand. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sandoval, do you have a question?
Yeah, so just to kind of summarize, Dr. Davidson, I mean, so it sounds like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we are kind of not reallocating, and maybe reallocating the HSA dollars. We're not going to be increasing out-of-pocket monies with our teachers and staff while promoting health and wellness across the district.
I think that's a fair statement. Yes, sir.
Okay. So that said, and I don't know if, while we're on this subject, I know Monica, kind of brought up, the premiums and where we sit today. Are we confident that we have best-in-class benefits, health benefits, for our 4,000 associates?
I believe through the Valley Schools Network, we have incredible resources. I know that Mr. Hicks sits on that board and could probably speak a little bit to our renewal process and how we go out to bid, that type of thing.
Madam President, members of the board, there's analysis done every year. We do have an extreme amount of purchasing power when you're going out for a bid and for negotiations with over 30,000 lives covered, and so every single year they do the negotiation. Now, Valley Schools also provides every year an analysis, not just of the benefits we're providing, but also what are the costs of the network, so the district and the employee side of it. For the most part, for the last few years, it has been, the network costs have been cheaper than anywhere. Now, this last year, I want to say that United was not. It was really close with Blue Cross and Blue Shield for a network. So the network that we're accessing and the pricing we're getting 2 of the last 3 years has been the cheapest around when they've done an analysis, and they have a third party come in and analyze that. Overall, all the benefits, they work to negotiate and get the best price possible, and we have seen dramatic reduction in costs from when we had a different pharmacy plan and we jumped over to Valley Schools and saved, I think it was a couple $1 million at that point in 1 year. So we've seen significant savings, and we continue. I think you have more going on some of the options, some of the voluntary benefits, and some examples of some changes there are Valley Schools' purchasing power to get things better in that sense, so yes.
Gotcha. And just one more statement, and Mr. Savoy kind of brought this up, about complacency, and I think that term can also be used, as we take a look at, the benefits, I guess, line item or certainly compensation, within the compensation model for all of our associates. That said, I think, certainly as a best practice, and it sounds like, and I don't disagree. I think, when you talk about scales, economies of scale and, and purchasing power, et cetera, the perception is that we are getting the best value, but I think it never hurts to certainly, whether it be every 3 years, 4 years, to even go out with regards to an RFP to kind of see what other options are out there as well.
If I could just comment, Madam President, members of the board, I agree. We look at it every single year. We will continue to look at it every single year. Now, I've experienced where if you go out to RFP every single year, somebody will give you a great discount, and the next year it's a 20, 30% increase. And so you do have to balance how many times you're going out. The beauty of being part of Valley Schools is they negotiate every single year. So every single year they look at the rates, the claims, and the cost to manage those, and they work to reduce those costs every single year. And to be quite honest, the more people that join Valley Schools, the greater purchasing power we have, although 30,000 lives is a lot. The more and more that go, the more and more power we have behind us, and every single year we will continue to look at that.
Would you mind going back? Oh,
I'll just add, I attended the last Valley Schools EBT board meeting, and one of the ideas that one of the other board members threw out was a request that Valley Schools investigate a model where there might be clinics within the school district. And I've heard of that happening in other places, and I hope that they will move forward on that. We can encourage them to do that. And that could offer convenience and cost savings to our employees, and I think it could be a good thing.
I have one more request. Just through this whole process, I would like to know how you're promoting and engaging our employees in the wellness program so that there's no stone unturned and we don't hear, I didn't know about it. So that would be great. Thank you.
yes, ma'am. Would you guys mind going back? Okay, let us continue, please, with a few slides on dental, and then we'll look at our vision plan as well. For consideration for your renewal tonight is that we continue with the TDA prepaid dental there. It does have a new name called Summit Care Plus. You will see in the next few slides some slight increases in premiums, but no plan design changes. As well as in Delta Dental, no rate increases for our employees and no plan design changes. So the next slide will give you a little bit of that information there, and this is the TDA premium for our dental. You can see the slight changes that are being proposed there for next school year. And with Delta there, for voluntary benefits, that also includes the vision. Here's the vision service plan there. Again, it was moved, or so you do know, it was moved to a pool plan within Valley Schools, lower co-payments, expanded level of coverage, a decrease in employee-only cost, and if you have dependents here, would be a slight increase for dependent coverage. And you can see those changes on this slide as well. Remember, that was an optional piece for employees. You will see no increases or plan changes to our short-term disability, life insurance, as well as our flex spending accounts. The next change there is simply a change moving to Colonial Life for accident, hospital, and critical illness coverage instead of AFLAC, and you can see the variety of reasons we had proposed that to you this evening. The real important piece to that is it's called guaranteed issue on all plans, but what that means basically is pre-existing conditions are covered within a variety of ways on this plan. That's why we felt comfortable in bringing that to you tonight. With that being said, I'll field any more questions that I can along with my team members here.
All right, I guess, Mrs. Doan, do you have any more questions?
No, I don't.
Mr. Sandoval?
No, thank you.
Mrs. Connect? Mrs. Sehar Martinez?
No, thank you again for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm glad to see the medical premiums are held flat this year again. I know it is a huge chunk for families to bear, but I know plans are going towards the wellness and trying to keep their employees healthy. So I'm glad to see that going up. Thank you very much. This is an action item, so I need a motion and a second to move this forward.
So I motion that we approve the employee health benefits for the 2017-2018 school year.
I'll second.
All right, members, please cast your vote. Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Next item. Item number 10, review of policy GCQC, resignation of professional staff members, and regulation GCQCR related to liquidated damages. Mr. Davidson?
President Pingarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler, again, thank you for letting me remain up here to engage you in a conversation, hopefully amongst yourselves and our team on our policy on resignation of professional staff members, and with the specific intent to look at how you would like to revisit and revise perhaps, or leave the same, this policy as it relates to assessment of liquidated damages for our staff. So tonight I built a little presentation for you. Please note that you feel free to interrupt me at any time to review the information, to ask questions, to give insight, because this presentation was put together on your behalf from the last governing board meeting, okay? So we'll start by simply taking a look at the critical attributes of our policy, and I believe I provided you some hard copies tonight. Hopefully you have those at your seat there. You have our policy, and you can begin by looking at that. That is the one coded in blue with the highlighter there. But basically, here are the key attributes. We start by looking at the criteria for waiving of liquidated damages. We talk about how we might prorate those assessed liquidated damages based on the FTE of a contract. Policy further digs into the superintendent's role in making the recommendations to you as a board. And then the last part of the policy deals with benefits and payout for those 12 or 9-month employees who choose to resign from the district. So that's kind of just those key sections of the policy. The piece that was to follow that is the regulation, which basically talks about our procedures. How do we collect our liquidated damages? And then what do we do if a waiver is granted for the assessment of those liquidated damages? As we dig into the primary reason for our conversation tonight, the waiving of liquidated damages, as you can see there's roughly 5 main pieces to how liquidated damages can be waived. The first one is a staff member choosing to retire, and with proper notice and completion of, hopefully I would like to add their contract. It says semester there, but I think that's an important piece. We currently have in their internal promotion to a position of supervision, advancement in title, and then entering into a new contract type. We also have the ability to waive liquidated damages for verified medical reasons, if you choose to move out of country, state, or county beyond the employee's control. And then lastly, that there is an agreement reached with the district, perhaps for job performance, lack of certification, and there's a few other items you can see there on your policy. Those are the current ways in which we can work together to waive liquidated damages. Options to consider as you again have conversation regarding this policy, and please note what I put on the slide here is not an exhaustive list at all, just things for you to think about. You can choose tonight to converse around the idea of removing that whole portion of the policy. I provided you 2 other districts, one from the district in which I came, as well as Deer Valley, a neighboring district, just so you could see their policies. Those are in pink and or green. If you want to just take a look at those tonight as you consider your conversation. You can leave the policy as is, leave it unchanged. You can consider adding criteria or a definition for external promotion. Maybe develop some type of scaled rate for liquidated damages, depending upon when they were here or when they chose to leave, how long they were here. And then, of course, the catch-all, any additional ideas or suggestions. So just wanted to provide you that framework for conversation this evening. And I think I'll probably just leave it at that and perhaps open it up, Dr. Stifler, to our governing board for conversation.
Dr. Stifler, would you like to go first?
Yes, ma'am. So, President Pingarelli, members of the board, so the intent here is we've had multiple conversations over the last couple of months about what's appropriate for liquidated damages. But there hasn't been an agended time to be able to actually talk about that. This is that agended time to do that. So I don't know exactly what your conversation will be, but it could go in multiple ways. But one thing, action is not slated for tonight, okay? So there's time to sleep on it, to think on it, to do those sorts of things. So one possible outcome to say might be, we could discern from the discussion, seems to be that the board is interested in exploring other pieces of the policy. Well, if we need to do that or to change the policy, well then it would be a 2-month process to do that. Okay, so we would have to amend the policy, we would have to a draft, we would bring it before you, there would be a read, and then we would bring it before you again, and you would have an opportunity to approve it, and that would change the policy, should you want to do that. You could You could change the policy a little bit. You could change it a lot. You could do a lot of things. I want to be really clear as well. I don't think it's best practice, but these are your policies. You also have the power to waive your own policies. And when a certain situation comes up that doesn't quite fit, it's within the board's purview. It might be uncomfortable sometimes, but the board can choose to waive its own policy. One outcome of tonight could be that it could be clear that there's a move upon the board, an intent upon the board, though no action is to be taken, that maybe there's a slight tweak in the policy that needs to be done from the board's perspective. Well, it's no secret, at least amongst the board and most of the people in the room right now, that there were some people who have had to pay damages as they've left our district actually for the last couple of years, but especially in January, there was at least one individual who left. And when they left, they went for a promotion, but it wasn't an internal promotion. Superintendent didn't have any latitude to say, well, that's external. I can't not impose damages. So they paid. When we get to the consent agenda, regardless of what you do here, it would be possible for a governing board member to pull that agenda item and to make a recommendation upon that, and pending the vote to do that, and we would refund those damages. A better practice, in my view, as I'm to advise you, is to what should our policy be going forward, and that's the conversation that's before you. Is liquid damages a good idea? And what should be exceptions? Do we have the right exceptions there? Do we have too many? Do we have too few? That's the conversation that I would encourage you to have this evening.
Well, let's start with Mr. Sandoval, since you had brought that up.
Sure. So I'll go back and really kind of surmise, why I wanted to have this conversation. And certainly, all the discussions, decisions that we make as a team, as a board, is focused on our students, without question. So my intent is certainly not to remove, liquidated damages from, the contracts. However, when we also take a look at, the acquiring and retention, of our teachers and administrators, which are the two groups that are impacted by this policy, I think it would be a strong message to include longevity, as a line item within this policy. When we take a look at, to be clear, Dr. Davidson, at 10 years, an associate, and I'm gonna use this statement, but please clarify, is, I don't want to say fully vested, but they're able to realize full benefits.
Yes, sir. If they were hired after July of 2006, 10 years or more is what is required.
Okay. So my thought there is that, when we take a look at longevity, as an addition to this policy, would be a 10-year minimum, which would, certainly, if an individual were to leave the district, after 10 years, that the liquidated damages would not be assessed.
Mr. Sandoval,
And real quick, sorry.
Yeah.
If it didn't put us in a bind, meaning, if, this particular individual, decided to leave in March, and we have a classroom of, 30 kids, that would clearly put us in a bind. Sorry.
Mrs. Kinnick, did you have a
So
comment?
that would work like as an incentive to stay for 10 years, because the liquidated damages would be gone. So it
Correct.
would like be an insurance,
That-
insurance account, right?
That would be another way to look at it, absolutely.
Okay.
Look, and I think, as we take a look at those individuals who may be in that position, we also need to take a look at or consider, our brand as a district. Our mantra is every student, every day, right? I think along those lines, it also needs to be spoken, every teacher, staff member, administrator, every day. as well. These individuals are walking billboards for the district. And what a better person to talk highly about how we treat and value our associates, which would help in the attraction, of high caliber teachers into our district.
I have a question. I see on this document that this policy was adopted in 2014, so that was before my time here on the board. And I believe, were you on that board at that time? Do you mind anybody giving me some background information why this policy was created? What was the purpose? Was it to deter? Was it because of insurance? What were the reasons?
Mrs.
It was intended to be a deterrence from the example that Mr. Sandoval gave, that we wouldn't be left with a classroom in the middle of a school year, especially in this time when there are not a lot of people available to fill an empty position. But I will say this, that for me personally and for the board as a whole, this has always been a very difficult issue, because the last thing we want to do is to financially hurt a professional teacher or administrator who has dedicated his or her life to students. So it's been a very emotional thing. I will say that however we land as a board on this policy, I do think it needs to be solid. I think the caveat that, maybe we'll waive it for this and maybe we'll give exception to a special case makes it very, very complicated. And Judy and Beverly can back me on this. When somebody stands up there and tells you their individual story, it is heart-wrenching. It is heart-wrenching. And so I think whatever we land on, it needs to be solid so we can discourage that sort of emotional experience for us, for the people in the audience, and certainly for the employee that's in that position, that it's cut and dry. And I recognize, Mr. Sandoval, that it's not as cut and dry as it would be, could be, should be at this point.
I was thinking maybe with verified medical reasons, we could include someone that had family, immediate family, like perhaps a husband had a stroke or something like that and needed a primary caregiver. I was thinking we should look at that. If some emergency happened in the immediate family, that could be looked at as a verified medical reason, not just to themselves personally, but to their immediate family.
My only concern, and I don't know, forgive me for not knowing all of the employee policies for medical conditions and FERPA or HIPAA and all those things, but what I'm seeing in the outside industry is we're getting more doctor's notes, more medical verification for anxiety. Well, we know this is a stressful environment that we live in. If we open up the floodgates that they leave the district because of anxiety, who's to say that's not a medical condition? Who's going to decide that? For HIPAA, they can't share that information. Is it always going to be executive session? Where are the guidelines? So enlighten me on that conversation.
Let me take this one.
Go ahead, sir.
Real quick, Carter. President Pingarelli, members of the board, where that says verified medical reasons, it's my charge to, after working with HR, to interpret that. And let me just tell you how I would interpret that. If someone's family was suffering and somebody had to stay home, I would waive damages. I would feel empowered by this policy to do that. If the doctor said they can't work because they're too stressed and there's increased anxiety, I would not impose, I would take that as good enough. Perhaps that's not clear enough, but to tell you how we currently would do business, that's how we would currently do business. I think what's important, I'm not sure, what brought this exactly to the head here was a longtime dedicated employee who had an opportunity to move to a dream job with Arizona State University. It's clearly a step up. It's going to still benefit education, but it's not an internal promotion. And so I must follow policy and could not do anything else but make sure that we imposed liquidated damages. There are other difficult stories along this path, but the most recent one, I believe, that brought it to a head to make it back to here, and I may be wrong on that, but I believe that's the most recent case. That's like, well, gosh, that one doesn't fit, okay? That one doesn't fit.
And to my knowledge, the person who's vacating the position does not put the school district in an immediate need, correct? Or does?
Did not,
Right.
did not.
It's not a,
This-
it's not a classroom full of
It was not a classroom
kids,
position.
right.
That particular one was not a classroom position.
So I think, to Mr. Sandoval's point, that is another important factor.
That's not covered in our policy.
That we may want to consider as we improve the policy.
Now, this directly affects teachers and staff. We did receive an email from CTA. Have we heard from PEA? Have we heard from non-member union members? Have we heard from administration how they feel about this? Where do they lie on the spectrum?
Dr. Carter, Mr. Hicks, and myself have met with all the associations, have discussed this, and the discussion has been wide-ranging. There wasn't a clear answer. There was like, we understand why it's there, we understand why it's not. Heard from, I believe, from PEA, not to put exact words in his mouth, well, that's not the part of the contract that I don't like the least, you know, so, is that a fair way to say that? We have discussed it with employee groups. There's not a clear, because no teachers also want to be, now I have to absorb everyone because you let somebody out. Right? There's that side of that as well. So we don't ever want to create hardship. I also, quite frankly, don't want employees who don't want to be here. I don't want that either.
Further comments?
Dr. Davidson, do you have enough of our comments to take them away and perhaps develop the existing policy with some of the additions that we've promoted, and then next time when it is an action item, we can give you further, take this off, add this on, that kind of thing? Have you heard enough?
We certainly could do that. I will, if you don't mind, I'd like to summarize what I have.
And just one more question.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
there any data for the requests other than we just spoke with? What other reasons are there?
Certainly, and I failed to inform you of the other form you have here that we use quite often with our employees. It's called the retirement resignation or termination form. And you can see here the variety of codes that we use inside our Visions human resources tracking system, so we can kind of see what's happening with our staff. To go back to, I believe, Mrs. Doan's piece on verified medical reasons, you see 303, care for relatives.
Okay.
We have that there because we know that's important. The piece about anxiety, doctor's notes, again, as Dr. Stifler said, we take that into consideration. It might be seen as personal, 310, because you're right with HIPAA, we're not going to disclose all that information. The liquidated damages policy does come into play through human resources. We have a lot of, not a lot, I shouldn't say that, but when employees are considering changes, they do think about that, regardless of position type. And so to bring it back, one of the things you wanted us to take a look at is position type. Are they in front of children or not? What would be the direct impact to a school, perhaps, if they changed their position or left us? That's something you want me to perhaps put into our policy or consider. Is that correct? Another piece that I thought I heard was tenure, looking at a tenure track record of success in our district, that if perhaps that would be a way to waive it if they were moving on to a different location. Is that kind of what I heard as well?
Dr. Stifler, this level of subjectivity is a burden on you, and what I think I heard Dr. Davidson say would add to that burden.
Good. So, Dr. Davidson, let me just own this. Here's what I think I'm hearing. I think I'm hearing that there's room to amend this policy in the following very single, clear way. That employees, people who have established loyalty in our district, perhaps by, we'll use a marker of 10 years, and have an opportunity to be promoted outside our system and are actually walking away from a retirement benefit, that we should consider a vehicle within our policy to allow them to do that. I think I feel comfortable from this conversation in order to bring something like that forward to the board, doing that. And so that amendment to the policy is very, very small. It's a few words in that, which will, I don't, if I put my, it's taking that word internal out of there, and it's inserting some very clear language about loyal with a tenure, and perhaps considering the detriment, the immediate bind that we're in. That would be a relatively simple fix to that I think Carter and I could work with employee groups to double check that there was no serious objection, and then bring that back to you next month to do that. That would be possible to do. If the issue is really about those people who have given their life to the district and to serving children, and there's an opportunity to grow and move up outside our system. If that's the clear fix, we can do that. If it's larger than that, and some of the conversations were bigger with the employee groups, well, does it matter when? So, okay, I signed my contract right now and I turned it in, but in May, maybe I could get something better somewhere else. Okay, so is it a sliding scale, right? So this is where it gets really murky, Mrs. Connect and everyone else, to go back to, not to put words in your mouth, but okay, so if I renege on my contract in this time, I pay the penalty. I don't pay, but when I get closer to the start of school and I can't get school started, there we are. Or it gets really, really difficult, or you pay the damages unless we can replace you. That would be another way to handle that. And if we can't replace you, you pay them.
Yeah, but at that point, maybe that's irrelevant, because you still put us in a jam.
We are in a jam. My perspective on this, and I think I shared this in a writing to you, is we sign contracts for reasons.
Mm-hmm.
We sign contracts for reasons, and the district can't renege on its part of the contract either.
Right.
We do have some very carefully worded things there. We have things in our policy that other people don't have. We work to protect our employees and treat them well. I do believe it's within, I'm just speaking for myself, that it is within the tradition of Peoria Unified to look at loyalty. There is the piece about the retirement benefits that somebody will not be accruing in a timeline for a while at least, that I can work with Dr. Carter to bring something back to you next month. If I'm really off base, though, I'd like to know that now. If I've misinterpreted what I've heard.
Well, I think we're making this a little bit complicated with a lot of different exceptions. I mean, we seem to cover quite a few bases right now.
Ma'am.
Dr. Davidson, what is the surrounding districts? Do they charge the same liquidated damages or similar?
From the understanding that we have, I don't believe they exist in all of our neighboring districts.
They don't,
They don't, or they,
in those you gave us, there's no
numbers?
monetary.
The policy, there isn't. I do believe in Alhambra's, it's seen in the contract. And so it is slightly different than ours, but it's not on the
But
policy.
there is a monetary.
Yes, ma'am.
Fee
Yep.
in both of the districts you shared with us?
I don't believe in Deer Valley
Oh.
at this current time.
Yeah, I'm under the understanding that, or belief that a contract, once it's signed, a person goes into the contract, hopefully reading it and knowing what the consequences will be if they break the contract.
Right.
It's there for a reason, so that if a teacher, say, leaves during the middle of the school year, that, as Dr. Stifler had mentioned, that, the students aren't going to be absorbed into other classrooms. I'm very strong into following, the contract, and once it's signed, if you break it, you know what the penalty will be, and to consider that with your next move. If you are going to be making more or having a more enjoyable job or whatever, that has to be part of your consideration. But that's my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. A contract is binding without question. However, that said, my only recommendation is certainly from a perspective of value and respect to our teachers and admin. Again, I think it aligns well, with the 10-year longevity that allows individuals to realize those full benefits. I think we have. I'm assuming that 10-year mark to realize those benefits, the 10 years is there for a reason, before they could realize, those benefits. I'm not clear on what that is, but I'm assuming it's been well vetted and thought out. So, again, it's about valuing our teachers. However, with the students in mind, Beverly, to your point, I mean, it's longevity, consideration, if it doesn't put us in a bind, meaning, again, Kathy brought it up, mid-semester, leave a classroom empty without a teacher. I'm in agreement there, without question. But if it doesn't leave us in a bind, I think we need to show that we truly value and respect, our teachers and admin.
Can the district terminate their contract at any time?
Not without cause.
Got to be with cause.
Not without cause. The district must uphold the contract.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I agree with you, Kathy, and governing board. Whatever we decide, I would like to be in full consensus, because as we go forward and having one-up situations, it could put all of us in the district and the morale in a tough situation, so.
Yeah, it needs to be very word specific so that we're not brought loopholes all the time.
Yes, ma'am.
Because that is counterproductive.
Yeah, so very quickly, Dr. Stifler, to answer your question, I think in my mind, you've surmised, the two key components that we're wanting to add or amend this particular policy.
Then I will work with Dr. Davidson to propose some language. We'll double check on legal and some other sorts of things. We have regular scheduled meetings with the board president and the board clerk to see if we can put it back on the agenda going forward. It would take, actually there would be no action necessary for the first time, but it would probably be wise to do so if I got it right. I'll take that onus, Carter. I'm sure you would get it right. And then a second read is how that would work, as per our policy, very clearly.
That amendment or policy, once we get to that point, to be communicated with all the employees.
Could do that.
So that if they want to provide feedback, they can.
Thank you.
Just one additional slide to consider. Again, that policy would be revised, and I put July 1st, but that would allow for communication efforts if that were the case, if not sooner. Please be reminded of the employees that were tabled from the last governing board meeting. You'll see them on your human resources report tonight. And then in the future, if need be, we can always revisit the regulation as well. Okay?
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you also.
All right, next item. Item number 11, consideration of the dissolution of the Peoria Unified School District Employee Benefit Trust Board. Mr. Hicks?
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Darwin Stifler, colleagues and community members. Now I'm here to request the dissolution of the Peoria Unified Employee Benefit Trust Board. This is a little bit different. So we had a requirement. When you're self-funded and you have your own trust, you're required to have a board. And so when this was created about 15 years ago, we set up a board to manage that. When we moved our benefits over to the Valley Schools Employee Benefit Trust, and they have a board, it still met that requirement. And so the need and the requirement was no longer there, but we kept our board around. And they have served us very well, in my mind. And some of the members that have been on there, none of them are employees, so these are all non-employees that are part of the board. 7-member board, and they've provided great insight on our benefit packages and issues and addressing those issues from the board standpoint and making recommendations. The disconnect, and this was one of my first meetings I had when I first showed up to Peoria, and I went to my first meeting, and I talked about the budget process, what we're doing, and the budgets drive a lot of things, and they said, well, what if we recommend one thing and you're recommending something different to the board based on the budget? And I said, well, that's up to the board to decide, but they ultimately have it. And so they realized early on there's a little bit of a disconnect, and that's mainly because the original purpose that the board was set up for, the trust board was set up for, was no longer needed in that sense. This year it came to more of a highlight as we had some appeals going through the process and we were not able to get a quorum. When you have appeals in the benefit world, there's a lot of deadlines and timelines that are aligned to it, and we were getting ready to fail to miss multiple deadlines, and so we had to then assign Valley Schools and through their appeal process to take over the appeal process for us. It was actually a good timing, so the stars kind of aligned. When we weren't able to, we moved over to them. They do a better job in the sense that there's a certain level of privacy that's expected when you're appealing a benefits decision, and we were having them fax into our employees here. When they would come in person, they would come to the board meeting, they would walk in, everybody would know. It eliminated some of the privacy that's required now. It goes to the Valley Schools, employees here, we don't even know about it, everything's redacted, and through the appeal process with Valley Schools, you don't vote, their appeal board has multiple districts represented on it, and you don't hear your own districts, and they don't even know the name that they're not even hearing their own districts. Everything's redacted out, and so it creates, in my mind, a much better process. With that, we're at the unique situation right now that we actually don't have a quorum. So the community members have dropped off except for one. We don't have a board representative, and so we're not even able to hold meetings right now. And so what I'm asking for is the board, if you looked at our original documentation, it required the governing board to officially approve the dissolution of the trust, and we have to make a notification of that. I think it's 90 days before it can be resolved, to be eliminated. I would say as soon as it's identified, then we'll eliminate it. But I will stand for any questions.
Mrs. Connect?
I like the idea of us having a school district EBT board with participants who don't have any skin in the game. I like that. I think that's a good check and balance, and I'm not going to move to get rid of it. Sorry. I'd like to see it re-energized.
Mrs. Sehar Martinez?
At this time, I don't. I don't know, based on what you're sharing, is we haven't had one for quite some time. Is that correct?
No, Madam President, members of the board, we've had an employee benefit trust board for 15 years. When the last member resigned and when the board, normally in our January board study session, we identify board members that will sit on that. We identified none for this. And at that time, when you took 2 more members off, we do not have a quorum. So it's been fully going forward every single year. It just in January, I can't remember if January or February was our last resignation. At that point, we no longer have enough members to meet a quorum.
I apologize. So I understood that we had it, but how often have we taken action? Have they taken action? It sounds to me like we passed those services on to Valley Trust.
Madam President, members of the board, sorry, I misunderstood the question. Yes, so Valley Schools still does that. We still make presentations to our budget team because other people, we do want our employees actually understanding what the benefits are happening in that sense. They'll approve recommendations, and so they do every single year normally approve recommendations before they come to the board, and so the presentation you saw earlier normally would have been reviewed and approved by our Peoria Employee Benefits Trust Board, but there was no board to have that meeting.
How long has that been when there's no board to present to?
Since January.
Oh, just this year?
Yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Mrs. Pingarelli?
Yes.
So what I do like, Mr. Hicks, is I like the degree of separation. I like that Valley Schools is doing the appeals. But I would like kind of an impartial group looking at at maybe options, maybe procedures, that kind of thing, especially if we can put people on that board who understand the industry and maybe have an awareness of, you know, of how these things work in organizations. And that's certainly not my area of expertise. I have colleagues in other school districts that use Valley Schools, and when I told them that our school district had our own EBT board, they were like, that sounds really good.
Yeah. Madam President, members of the board, we've actually had a couple community members that are in the industry and who provide extreme amount of value during the process. I will say that as I brought this to our budget team and said maybe we would take more of an active role, it was 100% positive in that they looked at now we'll be able to make decisions for employees. The employees will be making the recommendations and the decisions for the employees. And so it was a huge positive, and that was from a couple teachers that mentioned that comment.
So you're saying that that the work isn't going away, it's just going to be managed by employee groups instead?
Madam President, members of the board, we could set up any structure. Our benefits manager, when we meet with Valley Schools, we go through our renewal period. So much like questions that were asked, hey, how does this come up? We look at our claims, we look at our large claims, we're looking very detailed level at the staff level. That also happens at the board. And so the question that was brought to the budget team was, hey, would you like to also take a greater look, and we would start a little earlier, to look at the benefits side and start going through some of that data and some of that information and where we are in plan designs and premium costs and stuff like that.
That push the appeals to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Madam President, members of the board. I agree with your other comment. Keeping the appeal process at Valley Schools is essential. We've already transferred that because we were not able to fulfill that duty, and they do it better. So that would, I would say, stay no matter what. And so I would be recommending that we look internally to utilize an employee group to work through our benefit process on that side.
So would there be a way to engage employees who are firsthand stakeholders and also employ or engage people with expertise in the field of employee benefits so that we might have a mix? I thought my mic died for a
Sounded
second.
like it.
Yeah. It's a lot of responsibility to say to employees, sort through all this and come up with the best option for yourself and your colleagues.
Madam President, members of the board, I agree, but I will tell you, one of my first years with our budget team, we looked at many different budget changes to the benefit side, and that budget team, the comments they made about don't make these changes, don't have savings, look what you're going to do, were some of the best comments, and that's what we ended up doing. So 3+ years ago, we followed the budget team's recommendation when the presentation on benefits was made. And so they take a very active, and they talk to other members. And when we talk to our association advisory, they're all users, they're all understanding. The Valley Schools brings third-party Hayes, benefits consultants as well to the meeting, so you'll get some independent. Now, they're tied into the process, and they're not just community members that are providing input in that sense. I would say we could design anything we want. We were thinking the best process would be to incorporate it into our budget team process, and by we, I mean the budget team.
This is the kind of thing we can try it, and if we're feeling like we're not getting the right information, we can always move to put it back together.
Mrs. Doan, do you have any comments?
No.
Mr. Sandoval?
Just to clarify, and along the lines of what Kathy's saying, so with the dissolution of the EBT, we are confident that the collective voice of PUSD won't be lost at the table.
Madam President, members of the board, we have members of the budget team that are in here right now. I think we would be incorporating a process. I told them if we do this, we'll have to start meeting sooner than December. So it would mean that we'll start sooner to start learning a little bit more about the benefits side. I think an opportunity will be there. Will they say anything? I think they would now, but can I speak in 5 years that if everybody's saying what they need to be said? I don't know. We'll look for input and feedback. We look for those mannerisms and indications if they feel comfortable in that process. I think we have a very open process that they would provide very frank feedback at any time on anything. So I'm comfortable rolling it into the budget process from that standpoint.
Is there any more questions? All right, this is an action item for those who would like to move.
Mrs. Pingarelli, I move to dissolve the Peoria Unified EBT Board.
And that,
All right. Members, please cast your vote. It passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Mr. Hicks. Next item. Item number 12, land exchange agreement between Peoria Unified School District and Rancho Cabrillo Development LLC. Mr. Hicks?
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Darwin Stifler, colleague and community members. I am back on a separate item talking about a land exchange. And so this is a little bit different and somewhat unique. And so probably something none of you will see again. Well, I can't say that, actually. I could. Very few boards experience a land exchange transaction. And so what we're asking for is, so we're partners with our community, with our developers, and so we had a developer come to us and say, hey, you own land, we donated some land to you, and you own the 15-plus acres within our development, but we'd really like to see if you could move a few hundred yards away into a later phase in the development, but still roughly the same. And so we listened to that. We received the information. The first thing I went to is go over to a K-12 administrator, since I've never been a principal. Can you look at this layout? Looked at some architects, make sure the land is around the same, that the land is similar in nature, that we'll still have access, how it will be. So we go through a whole vetting process to make sure that it's okay and that we're okay with moving pieces of land. And so with that, we've been working on this for over a year with this developer and with our attorneys, and our attorney is here. Mr. Clyde Dangerfield is here for his assistance, and I appreciate him and all that he's done in this work. And so this is the culmination of probably roughly 14 months of work of looking at around 15 acres that is right around Dysart and Happy Valley, so just about a little north of that on El Granada Avenue, I think it is, on one side going a few hundred yards on the other side of the canal and moving across there. Now, per law, we cannot do this and give away anything, so the cost has to be neutral or beneficial to the district, which means that the developer had to give us equal land. Well, that means that roughly around the same size, because if they're a few hundred yards away, the appraisal is going to come in pretty equal. But we do have to have an appraisal to ensure that. We can't pay for the appraisal, so the developer had to reimburse us. We're not going to go with their appraisal. We're going to get our own appraisal so that we know. And then we also had to estimate legal fees, and so they've cut a check to cover our expenses through this point. I think we've already cashed the check. I didn't think about that. So we received roughly around $15,000 for them for this transaction to make sure that it's at no cost to the district, and this is the culminating process. All the approvals are there, and so I will stand for any questions. Or have our attorney come up and
Mrs.
answer any
Connect?
questions.
No, just to confirm, this land does fit into our master plan about where we need an elementary, or, yes?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Mrs. Seha Martinez?
No, not this evening.
Mrs. Doan? Mr. Sandoval?
No questions at this point, thanks.
I think that you guys have worked for over a year on it, so I will stand down and ask no questions. So this is an action item, so to move it forward, oh, sorry. Yes. Okay,
I would,
okay.
Madam President, members of the board, I would recommend the superintendent be executing those documents.
Okay,
Sorry.
so that would be included in the motion.
Is that okay, Glenn?
Mrs. Pingarelli, I move that we approve the proposed land exchange agreement between PUSD and Rancho Cabrillo Development LLC, and that Superintendent Stifler be authorized to do the paperwork.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. This is a voting item. Please cast your vote. It passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Mr. Hicks. Next item. Is a report and discussion on local, state, federal legislative issues and activities. Dr. Stifler?
Mrs. Pingarelli, members of the board, I realize the hour is late. This is also the very busy time down at the legislature, so pardon me, so I'll talk fast. In school districts across the state, we are always watching the legislature. I think the issue that most of us are looking at, maybe not the CFOs, but is how the A through F is progressing. The A through F is the State Board of Education has come up with a proposal. They are going around to every county in the state. I wrote down the date, but I don't have it here with me. The hearing is coming up in Tempe for Maricopa County, but there's also absolutely possible for people to submit what they think online. The State Board of Education has no choice. It doesn't matter if it's a good idea or not to have an A through F system. The law says they must come up with a plan. And so the State Board of Education is getting some flack like, why are you making a plan? Because the law is that they must. So I just want to be clear on that. This is the plan that it would be finalized just about the time that the kids are taking the test, and we would own those labels by the end of this year. A bunch of bills moving through the legislature. One that a lot of people have been looking at is the ESAs and moving that out. It looks like it doesn't have the votes, but nothing is ever over in the legislature until things are over, so we are watching that. The similar, not so much for us, but for some of our sister districts, DSEG funding is awaiting a hearing in the Committee of the Whole and to see what's happening. And a lot of bills have moved, but the Speaker of the House has put in a proposal and a way of doing where things have to be considered for appropriations differently than they have in the past. And all of those things are waiting. So we really don't know for sure on most of these things. DSEG funding on elections, somebody mentioned earlier this evening about bond. It has passed the Senate and the House for ballot arguments submitted by school districts governing boards that specify that that it's not signed by individual board members. Either the board said yes or they said no. That's a change from what's been law in the past. I'm going to skip most of this. As I said, appropriations is happening there. I want to say that actually this morning I was at the legislature to testify on something actually not directly regarding school districts, but about family and child advocacy centers and how that works. And I've been involved in that in the past, and so I was there this morning for that. Also hanging, and it's giant and nobody knows exactly what it's going to look like, is Governor Ducey put forward a lot of plans. But none of his budget pieces have moved forward yet. And one piece that we're beginning to look at is what does exactly success funding mean? And who would get money and who would not get money, and what is that criteria? And we're beginning to look deeper at that, but we don't know nobody knows what the legislature is going to do with Governor Ducey's budget. I met with just a couple of other people with Steve Watson yesterday. He's the new Maricopa County school soup. Interested to hear what he has to see and what his perspective is. And then last, as we're looking at local, it is very important that people realize that on March 28th at 6 p.m., that's when our Boundary Commission will be taking all public comment. They've been working hard under the leadership of Mr. Savoy there to come with a proposal. They're getting close on that. There's going to be a public hearing to hear that. Then we'll take the results of that hearing before we bring that to you. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to bring you a proposal in April that has been fully vetted with the community. This is a big thing of incredible importance to our district. We're unlikely going to be able to make everyone happy going forward. And the proposal, as I understand it, I have not been directly a part of the piece. It is my understanding that the proposal at this point, if it could be adopted, we would be able to hold the number of kids that we anticipate coming into our system through 19-20 school year. But by 2021, we would simply have to have more space, and there's not another way to move the kids around. That's for the public hearing, but to let you know where that's going, it will come before you in April. You are also all invited to not participate in the hearing, but to be there as well, and we can agenda that in a way such that you're not in trouble for doing that, but you can hear directly what people are saying, both good and bad. I want to say that the way that has been working is that we bring I haven't done any of the work, everyone else has done the work, but all the information is brought to the people. They are empowered. It starts a little slow and it starts to build, and then people see that there really aren't many options on what can be done. There are some changes, but I mean, there aren't too many choices. The comments earlier tonight about, well, we need to make the legislature do that. Well, we don't have the power to do that. We do talk to that, and the legislature is not starting any new bills. Although the bill I did testify regarding this morning was a strike everything. So Senator Brophy took everything out to allow this to go in, so that those things are possible, but very unlikely to do. And so March 28th, 6 p.m. at Sunrise Mountain will be our hearing. And here endeth my report, Madam President.
Thank you very much. Does any other board member have any other comments? No? Okay, then I guess let's move on to the next item.
Did we,
Do we skip?
15?
That's it, okay. Okay, so number 15, or actually it would be on yours, 14, consideration or request for agenda items for future governing board meetings. I'll start with Mrs. Connect.
Yes, ma'am, I'd like to have a study session about the possibility of reconvening a community committee on a bond, going out for another bond. Maybe what I really want is a study session for us to sit around and talk about a bond. That's what I want.
I second that.
Any other items?
That's it.
Okay. Mrs. Harmontiers?
No, I'm still waiting for my others.
Mrs. Doan? Mr. Sandoval?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
We'll take note of that. Okay, next agenda item is consideration of approval of the consent agenda. Does any board member need to pull any items from the consent agenda?
Yes, in light of the fact that we need further discussion around the liquidated damages, I'd like to pull line item 18B, which is the ratification of the Human Resources Report, more specifically the liquidated damages section.
All right. I need a motion, or actually, Mrs. McCarty, are you still working on that? Okay. Okay, we need a motion for the consent agenda minus the one item from Mr. Sandoval.
Motion to approve the consent agenda minus 18B.
I second.
All right, it's a voting item. Members, please cast your vote.
Can I have I think the point of order is how you would interrupt. We always say 18B, but then 18 turns to D, and I think we can just say B, because that doesn't change, right? Is that easier for you, Mrs. McCarty? Does it matter? Oh, yeah, but the letter doesn't change, right? The number, the number moves, but not the letter. Like you pulled, and it still says B down here. So if we called the item by the letter, I think that works fine. Yes, that's fine. Okay. Thank you.
Do you need me to rephrase, or?
No.
Okay.
No, thank you very much, though. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, please cast your vote. Passes 5-0. Mr. Sandoval, did you have any comments on 18?
No, I think, in light of the discussion that we had earlier, I'm looking forward to the, the thoughts, from Dr. Davidson and team and Dr. Stifler. I think in addition to the clarity on some of the areas that we're considering amending the liquidated damages policy, I further move, in light of those items, that we move to refund or not assess those liquidated damages to the individual listed third from the top on that report.
Well, from my understanding, the policy hasn't been changed, so the...
That would be correct. So that would be a waiver to the policy, which is, the governing board would have to approve that, but yes, ma'am.
So you're moving for a waiver
For one particular
on
person.
this particular person?
Or just as we think through this, Dr. Stifler, that was one way that we could do it. Could we also, if the policy changes and it affects individuals in the future, could we make it retroactive? And would that be easier or more difficult? What is your recommendation?
My recommendation, Madam President, members of the board, my recommendation is to, as Mr. Sandoval's motion there, that be acted on directly right there. Whether, if it passed, then we could go on with the rest of the human resources report and accept that, and we would refund that individual's that money paid. If it didn't, it doesn't mean that if the policy changed in the future, that it still couldn't be. I would recommend that you take action on the motion that's on the floor, or see if it gets a second, to waive for the board to waive its own. The motion is for the board to waive its own policy on applying the liquidated damages for that one individual. And so there's a motion on the floor. It would take a second. If there's a second, then Mrs. Pingarelli, you would call for the vote. Then whichever way that went, then we still need to accept the report on all the other actions.
Okay. I'll second the waiver on the individual noted.
Say yes.
Yes, is to answer your question.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll give you some time. Thank you very much. This is becoming very complicated.
Mrs. Pingarelli, while she's doing that, if it passes, then we're done with the consent agenda. If it doesn't pass, then I would hope there would be another motion to accept the Human Resources Report as originally submitted. That would be the process to go
Okay.
forward.
Thank you for the clarity.
Thank you.
We can have discussion while Mrs. McCarty types that up, if anybody has any comments.
I just want to clarify, because we only received one email, I haven't looked at all the reasons for, I see the asterisk, but they're not for all of them on the list. So I just want to be clear that if we, whatever way we decide tonight, for the others, we can always go back if we have a policy change.
You can always go back.
Dr. Stifler, can I just ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So you have the discretion to waive, as we had discussed before.
Within policy.
Within policy.
There's nothing in policy that allows me to make the waiver that Mr. Sandoval is suggesting.
So we're following policy by keeping the liquidated damages for all of those individuals right now.
I'd say that is correct. I would agree with that statement. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We can change it. If we decide to change the policy, it would be effective for this
When the
individual
policy
as well,
changes,
And-
not,
without going against our own policy.
Right.
And that's a good point. I think, you know, as we take a look at those individuals within that listing of recommending the liquidated, assessing the liquidated damages, you know, certainly knowing that we're having a, you know, further discussions around this policy, I don't want to lose sight of those other individuals, I guess is what I'm saying.
This was tabled last month.
Yep.
If you want to act on it now, it can be acted now. If you want to wait until, if you wanted to wait until the policy is begun to go through a process, tonight was just a discussion to begin a process or complete the process. You could withdraw the motion and you could do that later because it's tabled at this point. They're in limbo at this point. If you wanted to take action now, it's the board's policy.
And
right?
I would be comfortable with that because it's not like somebody is waiting on money.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, agreed.
So perhaps the option is to withdraw the motion and move to table.
It's already tabled.
Or just leave it.
It's already, right.
Because they're on the report. So if you approve the report as presented, we'll be in fact acting on those unless
Correct.
you table them again.
Yeah, would they have to be tabled again?
Mrs. Pingarelli, may I advise you, then perhaps you would offer Mr. Sandoval an opportunity to revise his motion and see if Mrs. Connect would continue for a
Change her.
second. And perhaps, Mr. Sandoval, your motion might be to table the liquidated damages on those four individuals as it was before. Yep.
Okay, so that said, I am trying to keep us here till 10.
Modify it.
Yes, so I wish to withdraw my motion. However, I wish to remove or pull the liquidated damages assessment section of the Human Resources Report. And table,
To table it.
to
would be better
to table
for a future meeting.
the liquidated damages for a future meeting.
But approve the rest of the report.
Correct, but approve the rest of the report. Thank you
And I'll
for
second
that.
They've already
Yeah.
withheld the money.
Okay,
They've already withheld the money.
all right.
So all those included,
Yes.
including the administrator, correct?
All right, our new motion is to move to ratify the Human Resources Report as presented, but tabling the assessment of liquidated damages for certified and administrative staff. We've had a motion and a second. Are we ready to vote, Mrs. McCarty?
I thought it was already assessed. Now we're tabling it then.
Because the board hasn't accepted
Oh. I voted? Okay, I voted. Has everybody voted? It passes 4-1. Okay, next item. Item 26, Budget Facilities Planning and Construction Report. These are items that have been pulled from the consent agenda, and these can be viewed on our website. Thank you, Ms. McCarty. Next item. District Budget Report for the month of January 2017. This also can be viewed on our website. It's not pulling up, but there we go. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for pulling that up. Next item. District Enrollment Report for January 2017. And that also can be viewed on our website. Thank you very much. Next item. Report on upcoming meetings and events. And I wanted to point out a couple of items. Since Mr. Panzer is here, he would, I think, not be happy if I didn't point out April 1st. I'll wait till it comes up. April 1st, Saturday, is the Peoria Arts and Cultural Festival, Old Town Peoria. I've had the pleasure of being there the last couple of years. I really, appreciate your people's work and all the art that hopefully everybody will come out to view that. Also, March 20th to 24th is spring break. All schools and district offices will be closed. Next one, April 10th at 5:30, Peoria Education Foundation's 12th Annual Education Visionary Awards at the Arizona Broadway Theater. And April 25th at 6 p.m., the Volunteer Appreciation Event at Marshall Ranch Elementary School. Those are some of the main highlights. Thank you very much. Next item. Next item, item is the draft agenda for March 30th, 2017, regular board meeting. And this will be a study session format. Our discussion is regarding community engagement. So we welcome as many people that would be happy to come out, and that is March 30th at 6 p.m. Thank you very much. Next item. Item 31, board member opportunity to readdress agenda items. Does any board member want to go back and review anything?
Nope.
Okay, Mr. Sandoval? No?
No, thank you.
Mrs. Connect? Okay, no? Okay, I don't either, so, or I'd be either.
We're done with that.
Next agenda item is to convene, we're laughing because we're tired, I'm sure as all the members out here are. Convene executive session, which we do not need to do since we went ahead and passed that item. So we will move on past that. And get to the last item, 33, consideration of adjournment. Everybody, can jump in.
All right, I will move that we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second, but I accidentally already logged out, so I'll just do it.
You're in a hurry, were you?
It's been one of those nights, so can we have a verbal?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye. 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 All opposed? No? No.
We'll meet you out back.
Ayes passed. Thank you. Thank you so much. See you here in 2 weeks.